How are you? Welcome to the Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie of the MHRT Network. Over that way rather, is DZ representing his Los Angeles Chargers. I am, of course, representing my Denver Broncos. And soon to be joining us, who is late, so feel free to remind Jack that watches are generally accepted pieces of attire in today's polite society. Jack will be joining us to talk about his Las Vegas Raiders. So we're gonna go right into it, and we're gonna, jump 2 feet into the wins, the losses, the good, the bad, the ugly, and kind of just go around the table. We're gonna kick off with my Denver Broncos and our win barely over the Titans, and talk about what that looked like, and go from there. So these that we were talking in the green room. We kind of both watched each other's games and stuff like that in terms of what we saw on the field, how each other's teams played, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I have my own thoughts on my team. I'm not going to lie, most of them are not good, but curious as to your thoughts on my Denver Broncos, how we played and whatnot.
I think that defense was. What's that term I'm looking for? God, why I had this term exactly what I was thinking about the Broncos defense. They were as advertised, I guess, coming into this preseason, in this offseason. So there's no surprise with them. My surprise was with your guys' offense. Looks like we don't want to flirt with the word sophomore slump with Bo. It's week one. I'm sure everybody's jumping the gun or trying to jump to conclusions. But, if you look at the stats, it wasn't that bad in my eyes. I looked at it, but watching the game, there was some stuff. I guess if I was a Broncos fan, there would be a little concern heading into this season. But like I said, it's week one, and what we talked about, I think, in the green room was, let's see what these teams look like a few weeks down the road when they work out their kinks, get the offense going, get the flow. There's a lot of new stuff on, all teams. You guys have a whole new running back room. But that defense was nasty. I think they were rated the number one defense this last week, if I'm not mistaken. I did save it somewhere. Man, what a rough game for Cam Ward. I low-key felt bad for the kid, man. I mean, his wide receivers didn't do him any favors against your guys' secondary. I was surprised Jahdae Barron wasn't a starter. Maybe he did get to play, but I was surprised he wasn't named as one of the three, cornerbacks. Are you surprised that I was surprised, or?
Well, I'm surprised that you're shocked after seeing the preseason with the Broncos playing in it.
Well, no, I didn't hear anything about Jahdae. I mean, everybody,
No, but that's my point though. Like, the general consensus out of Broncos country was almost insanity in some regards, which is you went ahead and drafted a cornerback in round one.
Right.
And he's literally your fourth best on the roster.
I mean, look, that's a great problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's issues that I would like to have, and then there's issues that I'm sure others would like to have. And,
right.
This one here is a really interesting one, which is you went ahead and drafted a cornerback, but you're not even going to start him because the dude that you have on the roster that was like a mid-round pick is actually better than he is.
Yeah.
Or late, actually, UDFA, actually, I think.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, but I think for most teams, if they were to draft a guy that high as a cornerback, I would say the majority of teams, he would be starting, right? So I was just a little taken back from it, but knowing what you guys already have on that defense, it makes sense. I think Nick Benito earned his payday. I think he was number one. He had a 91.6 pass rush grade. He had a sack. He had 6 pressures. Incredible. I think they said that, the defense as a whole, for an impact metric, they had him ranked 93.3. So yet again, Cam Ward felt terrible for him. They didn't do themselves any favors. They had a ton of penalties that the Titans did. His receivers dropping balls. So, yeah, it was a welcome to NFL moment for him. Week 1 going against which people are predicting could be the number 1 overall defense heading into this 2025 season. But, they hung in there. It was back and forth. I think that it was 12-20 was the overall score.
Yep.
I'm sure you've got some concerns and you'll talk about your offense, but look, that's why we play. That's why this is a team game. There's 2 sides of the ball, right? So one side's got to pick up the other side if the other side's not up to par. And I think that was kind of that game. And let's face it, also, Titans their defense actually looked pretty decent. Like they look like they've got some dudes on there. So
well, that middle guy in their nose tackle position, Sweat.
Yeah, oh God.
That guy is an enormous human being.
Yes.
Yes. The guy is just huge.
Yes. Yeah.
But a few things from that game to give some of the guys a little bit of a pass. Both teams had multiple players slip on the turf.
Okay.
Which was weird because we use natural grass. So it's not like this is turf, which is susceptible for kind of the slick kind of top and that kind of stuff. So it was kind of surprising to me that multiple guys slipped. So that was interesting. But it was raining pretty heavy on and off. There was a brief rain delay there for a few minutes there where they were concerned that it was just going to get too wet. So obviously the turf, despite the drainage and all the other kind of stuff, was definitely slick for the players to get grip on and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So something to keep in mind there. Now, looking to the Titans side of the ball, their defense is pretty legit. In fact, most people don't realize that the Titans defense was ranked number 2 in the NFL last year. Most people just don't realize that. They kind of look at Titans being number 1 overall in terms of pick. In terms of their selection in the draft, and they just assume that the entirety of their team sucked. Well, the Titans were completely lopsided last year. Their offense was awful, but their defense played very well. And so all they're really looking for is a quarterback to come and spark them. I would actually not be surprised if the Titans don't shock a lot of people this year, because while Cam Ward's game against the Denver Broncos defense was not great, if you look at the splash plays and the way that he was able to keep poised under center and do certain things, I think he's got the it factor, in my opinion. I think he's got what it's going to take to be a successful quarterback in the NFL, and I think you're going to start seeing him stack games pretty soon at the NFL level, where he's going to, level up as the season goes on and really start to, kind of have, dare I say it, a little bit of like a Bo Nix style season this year. And I think that will surprise quite a lot of people, but I'm seeing the pieces where he's doing a lot already, and he just started his first game. So good for him.
I completely agree with you, Richie, on Cam. There was moments in the game where you saw and you're like, okay, this is why he was the number 1 pick. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that about the Titans defense last season. That just shows you how much I pay attention to the AFC South. So my bad. But I'll say his weaponry didn't do him any favors as well. But look, at the same time, it was okay. I got my dog right here. He's wondering what the heck's going on. All right, relax, dude. And let's go back to your game. Sorry. Interruption from my dog.
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump off at a few things here. So I think that the Titans running game and offensive line were very good. And I also think that the Titans defensive line was very good. And I think that the 2 lines that the Titans have, both offensive defense, is going to cause a lot of teams fits in the NFL this year, because they're actually way better than they looked. Now, injuries happen. And so if they have a few injuries on those lines, I'm sure they'll start to fall off a little bit. But generally speaking, both D-line and offensive line are quite good. Couple that with a quarterback that look competent, and will be ascending, not descending. And I think you have a team that really should be treated with a pretty high level of respect in the NFL moving forward until proven otherwise. Now, on the Broncos side of the ball, I have some pretty big time issues. Number one, had quite a number of mistakes that were made on the field. The offense sputtered, to say the least. Luke Wattenberg needs to ride the pine, and he needs to get the heck off the field. I've seen enough. He had his opportunity. He blew it. He needs to go. The guy's not going to be what we need. In order to win with this team and to allow us to leverage the running game and truly get our home field advantage when you're playing at mile high with the thin air and other things like that, you need to be able to run the ball when you want to run the ball. And running the ball, as many of the gifted offensive linemen who have played in the NFL will say, and I'm actually pulling directly from Stink, or the Mark Schlereth, one of Broncos country's famous linemen that is now a media pundit.
Hey, I'm a big fan of Mark as of lately.
And
His tweets these last few days have been
they're spicy. They're spicy,
yeah.
and they're on point. I'm a big fan of his. He and I have volleyed back and forth in violent agreement in the most part on X over the years, including our choice of lawnmowers. Weird fun fact. But with regards to the run game, as Mark will tell you in multiple podcasts, the run game is a mental part. Like, you either have the mental mindset to move another man off the spot and then get your guy down the field. You have that moxie, or you don't. You either have the skills or you don't. And it's typically not something that is often coached. I mean, obviously there's exceptions to the rule, but generally speaking, most linemen either have that mentality or they don't. And I don't believe Wattenberg has it. I believe Quinn Miners had it in spades. And in fact, what Quinn Miners needed to do is not to work on his run game. He needed to work on the pass pro, because he was just so violent in the run game that he almost put himself at a disadvantage in the pass game. And so, he just needed to learn the pass pro stuff, and pass pro can be taught, whereas run blocking is typically a mental mindset, which linemen often cannot be taught. It's either they have it or they don't.
I want you to hold that thought, like when I get into my game, because I've got there's the same exact scenario going on.
Yep. And so there's two things that came from Wattenberg's poor play. One, we had no real good run game up the middle. And two, we had multiple even pass protection plays blown up by both at the guard side and the center spot because of the poor play. Ben Powers struggled a little bit to course correct for some of the poor center play. Quinn Miners was able to adjust. Like, generally speaking, he was able to adjust, but not good. Like, the center just needs to go. I'm literally at a point. You heard it here first. I want Wattenberg benched and Forsyth in at center, and I want that happening ASAP. Like, it has to happen like tomorrow.
Now, you were saying, talking real quick, but you're talking about the run game. Something I noticed in you guys' game was Peyton seems, look, and I could be wrong because I'm not paying attention to certain things like you are. Obviously, I'm an outsider looking in, not paying attention to the full thing as a Broncos fan would. But one thing I noticed with this scheme Peyton runs, and it was last year, and we saw it in preseason, everything goes outside, it seems. It seems like he wants to go everything outside. Screen game, guards pulling, wide receiver screens, everything's going outside and nothing up the middle. And I'm wondering, is that Peyton? Is that what the Broncos are trying to do? Or is that also a little respect for that Titans front that they had?
Well, the Titans front forced that on the offense. They tried running up the middle, and they quickly found out that
not going to happen, huh?
Anything on the left, anything leaning left was never going to be a success up the middle part of the field. So the combination of Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers and Wattenberg, you weren't doing anything. You were not getting the movement to shift Sweat, who's 6'6", 6'7", 366 pounds.
He's a beast, man.
Like the dude's like a Mack truck with legs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's
Yeah.
like it's just massive. And so the real problem that you really have there is that you can't move him off the spot. And part of an outside zone scheme is you need that motion to the side in order to open up the diagonal lanes for the one cut and go, which is a diagonal cut through the hole and then upfield immediately, actually, in order to make that type of blocking scheme work well. And Sweat just simply was too big, too strong, and actually too fast for his size, where he really prevented the Broncos' offensive line to set and move him off the spot to allow the run game to work. So, I mean, credit where credit's due to the Titans' defensive line, right? Like I think that they were a big part of this. They were the reason for the lack of success in the inside run part of our team. That being said, for those that want to try to say that the outside zone does not produce inside runs, I mean, I'd look to a guy like Terrell Davis, for example, for my Denver Broncos, who ran the outside zone scheme, and he had plenty of big runs up the middle, actually. So where it really just comes down to is you need the offensive lineman with the right mentality to move other grown men off the ball and off the spot. It's just like there's just no other way of putting it. And it's a mentality, actually, that I heard from Ray Lewis that I think best describes that mentality, which is you need to go into the game and come into that game to say that one guy that's in front of me will not be able to block or stop me. And I just question whether or not some of the Broncos linemen that we currently have are coming into the game with that as a mentality. I think there's one or two of them at least that are saying, I hope I don't get hurt.
I think there's, Ray Lewis, his mentality, and there was many other players like him, probably not of the same caliber as him, but others with that same mentality, that same heart, right? That same football that we grew up watching kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I think this isn't me talking smack on players today, but I think there's a different mentality. I think there's also watching your pockets, let's just say, making sure that they're available for, next week's game check or whatever. Hey, salute, Jack. Welcome, buddy.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, sorry I'm late.
No worries.
But anytime I get stuck on these SEP divorce calls at work, they always take forever.
I don't understand what that is, but hey.
Just people divorcing. Got to sever the accounts out.
Okay.
So those take forever. So apologize to you gentlemen and everybody in the chat.
No worries, dude. We're talking about the Titans-Broncos game right now.
Okay.
But I just think that there's a slight difference in mentality in players today than there has been in years past, and it's a different era. It's a longer season. Availability is your best ability, and we see. I feel like, and I wish somebody would do stats about this through the different generations of the NFL. I just feel like there's so many more injuries, so many more people are getting injured, a lot more soft tissue, and we've gone into this in the off season. We've talked about this, and there's a lot of different theories on this, but these players back in the day would break fingers, do all this stuff, get back in the game. They're playing, you know what I mean? And now we're seeing like, oh, so-and-so got hit. He got hit too hard. We're going to be cautious about him and keep him out of the game, which, 20 years ago, they would probably still be playing. So, yeah, I see what you're saying, Richie, on kind of that mentality to, enforce yourself on others or force your will on others.
Yep. And so that impacted the inside run game. And the other thing that I'm actually really sick of Broncos fans not actually calling out. And I want to know if you guys noticed this in the game. It was the first thing I noticed, and it's the biggest thing I noticed. And you cannot win these games with that, which is the interior defensive line of the Broncos got pushed around And the problem that we had is that with the Titans' offensive line being quite good, the Titans were actually getting to the third level on a good percentage of their runs. And so what you ended up seeing was like Hufanga and Jones and McMillan, like some of our corners, having to come in for like secondary and tertiary assists on the run tackles. Now, the running backs and the linemen and stuff are being slowed down by the interior of the defensive line. But my concern on that front there is that if this is a proxy, if I'm going to extrapolate this game and apply it to others, and we look at a team like the Chiefs with a pretty decent offensive line, or at least a reasonable offensive line, and we look at, say, the Chargers, who have a pretty decent offensive line overall, like at least you guys are able to run the ball fairly well. And some other teams in the NFL, like other teams in the NFL that have, reasonably good offensive lines. I'm concerned that will become a trend and not the outlier, because the problem here is I made a comment in one of the shows I was in, which is, all right, guys, so that's fantastic. The safety stopped him. Now my question is, who's behind the safety to stop him if he makes it past him?
I'm looking
and it's
at, I see what you're saying. I'm looking at Pollard's stats. He had 18 attempts for 60 yards, so it's a 3.3 yard per carry, which for your defense, that's not bad. I mean, he's a decent running back, and maybe you're being a little harsh, I feel like, on your defense, but
I agree. I think, keeping him to 3.3 is actually not that bad. I mean, only 60 yards in total. I think nowadays, keeping.
If you see something over 4, that's when I start getting, okay, here we go.
He's about the marker with 18 carries.
Hold on. What you're missing is that's an average yards per carry.
Sure.
Right.
So there was a handful of plays, which I will give my defense credit for. They stopped them either at or behind the line of scrimmage. So Pollard had a couple plays get blown up where he was tackled for a loss of 2, 3, and 4. But then he had other plays where he ran for like 6 to 8. And so the problem is that you're looking at the average of those two types of plays, and you end up with an average of 3.3. My point being is that on the ones where he ran for 8, you were lucky that the safety was able to make a sound tackle in the open field there and not let him break off for what I'll refer to as an RJ Harvey run, because that was one heck of a play from that young rookie running back in that game. Like that was legit. But
looking back,
that was the play where he kind of sidestepped the Titans defense on the second level and then ran for something like 30 or 40 yards. Like it was a beast of a play. But that's the problem. Like that's a big problem for the Denver Broncos. You cannot have your safeties be top tacklers on the team. It cannot happen. Like you cannot operate a team like that with the safeties being in the top of the tackle stats. Linebackers, sure. Right? I'm fine if Singleton is a top tackler on the team on the regular, because that's kind of their job. Their job is to be the thumpers, to stop the run and all that kind of stuff. I also fear, and this is, again, not going to be popular in Broncos country, I actually want to look at the stats and rewatch the game again, but I'm going to say it on record as if it's true, and I'm just going to run with it and claim that it is, even if I'm wrong, is Justin Strnad is too small of a linebacker, even though he seemingly had a very good game against the Titans. I think that he actually got himself boxed out of a lot of plays, and that's part of the reason why we struggled in certain looks, because he was not able to break free and win some of those blocks. Singleton is a big enough dude and is able to shirk and kind of get out of those types of conundrums, sort of blocks from some of the defensive linemen. Strnad is a little bit closer to the weight of like a heavy safety as opposed to a sizable linebacker. And that's what my concern is.
Seems to be the trend today, Richie, with these.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know
this
what
is
you're
the problem, though. He's also not great in coverage. So the thing is that you go for a lighter inside backer because they can cover guys and potentially tackle. Stranad's actually the opposite. He's not particularly great in coverage. In fact, he often gets burned in coverage. But he's actually a better tackler when he's got the straight line speed in order to go after the guy that he's tackling. It's kind of the meat and potatoes of the position a little bit in terms of what you would want a light inside backer to do that Stranad actually struggles with. And to me, that's why I don't want him there. I want Lavelle Bailey to be put in that position, and I want to see him on the field. I want to see a bigger, faster back that can also cover in Lavelle Bailey there. And also I want to see Karine Reed get some playing time as well, because I think the two of them are the future for the Denver Broncos at the inside linebacker position, at least for now.
Do you think that?
I think he's playing smaller than what he really is. I mean, he's actually a pretty big guy, 6'3", 235. That's actually a pretty decent sized, guy. So he must not be showing out then.
Right. He's playing. Sorry, it's not that he's particularly like super small. It's that he plays small. He doesn't play that big role. He doesn't play like his actual size is. He is often boxed out, pushed around, doesn't make the tackles you'd expect someone like him to make. All those sorts of things. There's plenty of linebackers that fit that mold, by the way. There's plenty of linebackers that you find out are like 6'3" and 245, and you're like, but you got run over by a 5'8" running back. What's the matter with you? Right? Like,
that was Diavolo last year. It's like, So I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So there's plenty of dudes that just don't play to their size or to their ability, and sometimes change of scenery makes a difference for them, right? Sometimes they move to a different team that has a different mentality, a different way of doing things, and all of a sudden they flourish. And you know what?
Scheme.
Yeah, and you know what? That's great, fantastic. And if that's what it takes for him to do well in the NFL, as long as it's just not against my Denver Broncos, I'm fine with it. But ultimately, I just think we need better inside linebacker play in order for us to be successful. And then, obviously, it goes without saying, Bo Nix played like trash. It was not his greatest game. Made a bunch of mistakes, had a few footwork issues, that sort of thing. In fact, that was actually what my biggest issue with Bo was. He did all of this work in the offseason to improve his throwing motion and improve his footwork. And I'm still wondering where those lessons, where they've been applied. In the preseason, he was making some similar errors to what he made against the Titans. And in the Titans game, he continued that kind of concerning trend that we saw in the preseason. Now, we also saw him bounce back. So we saw him kind of take control and do some things. So I know that he is still very much in there, so to speak, and I think he can bounce back. So that, I think, is a fair critique as well.
What you just said, that bounce back, kind of happened league-wide with a lot of quarterbacks. You saw a lot of, like, below average, not so good quarterback play, and then you just saw these guys, which surprisingly, with these young quarterbacks, they took it to another notch in the fourth quarter and were able to get their teams a victory. So, at the end of the day, all that matters is the curly W. But there's fair criticism because look, Bo does not have the best nickname after that game, and I'm sure as a Broncos fan, you would like to see those interceptions cut down, be a little bit more efficient with his receivers, which coming into this season, we all thought that wide receiver room, should be a great wide receiver room. And look, we kind of hinted at it. Is the Titans defense better than we thought? Is what's going on here? So that's why at the same time, I'm also like, let's see what this looks like in a few weeks.
Two other players real quick, and then we'll throw over to you guys to make some additional comments, and then we'll move on to a different team.
Sure.
Marvin Mims.
What the
fumble return. You just simply can't do that, right? Like that's just like, you have one job, right? Like only one. Like worst case scenario, catch on, hold on to the ball, and get yourself smoked, but at least don't let go, right?
Right.
And so there was that. And then I have come to the conclusion that last year was an outlier for Mims. I believe that he had a flash in the pan, and then he was ebb and flowy throughout the rest of the season. I was hoping that we were going to see Marvin Mims step onto the field this year and
Take
kind
the
of
top off of defenses.
just go. You know what I mean? Just go.
Yeah.
And instead, what we're seeing is Troy Franklin fill the top off defense role,
Yeah.
and honestly do it well. If we're going to be honest, he has made major steps forward. So to his credit, you know,
And that
good for him.
chemistry is undeniable as well.
Yes, I agree. But then I have another issue, which is we let some other UDFA wide receivers go that looked absolutely steady and solid throughout the entirety of preseason, with the intent of keeping Sherfield as the extra or number 5 wide receiver who is kind of doing the dirty work on the offense, the little Jordan Humphrey role, the guy that's going to be in there for inline blocking on run plays and seal the edges and that sort of stuff. Sherfield got called for 2 penalties for blocking. Raider Zach, I agree, but you'll note that the guys that I'm actually critiquing on my team, almost none of them are rookies. A lot of them are guys that are 2, 3, and 4-year players or more. And so, sure, a 4th-year player, I think it's totally fair game to say at this stage in your career, my man, you should know better and be better. Whereas I'm willing to give absolute grace to say someone like RJ Harvey, who is a rookie, if he misses a block, for example, in the pass pro side of things. I'm willing to give young rookies grace for running the wrong route or clipping some guy because they just don't know what they're doing, or they've misread the play or misread the depth or whatever. That stuff happens. I can give some credit and grace in that regard. You lose me though when you're a veteran player and this is like your 4th, 5th, 3rd year or whatever, and you're with the same team and have been now for the last 3 years. The answer is you got to stop that nonsense. Like you have no place in that. Sherfield was brought in to be the sure thing. He was brought in to be the guy that they could just throw it on the field and he could do the dirty work cleanup role on the wide receiver side. And instead, he didn't do very well in special teams, which is one of his things that he was supposed to be an ace at, and he messed up when he was on the offensive side of the ball. So then I'm looking to a guy like Jaquan Davis, and I'm looking at another guy, Courtney Jackson. Courtney Jackson refused to come back after being cut from my Denver Broncos because he's like, well, I'm not going to make the roster, so why would I bother coming back to the practice squad? And Jaquan Davis isn't back with us either. I don't even know where he is, but he had some, promise, if you will.
You were high on him.
Yeah. And I actually think that he has the potential of being a pretty solid player in the NFL with enough polish. And so my big thing here is you got a veteran. The veteran's supposed to do the thing. So if he doesn't do the thing, then why did you keep him? Right? Because you cannot allow a guy that's at that spot in the roster be more of a negative than a positive. And that's just not me saying that as a general, well, Rich is always pessimistic or whatever the case may be. Like that's stat sheet saying like the dude got penalized twice for yardage and did not do well on, like he did not grade well either.
Well, I guess, on Mims, I do have a question. Do you think it was just Mims or do you think it was because, Bo didn't have a great day or just kind of a combination of both?
Okay, so if you're looking for the percentage of blame in terms of wide receivers not doing well and Bo not doing well, that's an 80-20. That was 80% of Bo, 20% on the wideouts. And the reason why I'm willing to be so heavy on that, and I will fight anyone in Broncos country that wants to try to come at me with it because I can show you on the film where you're wrong, is the vast majority of Bo Nix's throws in this game were late. And the reason you can tell they're late is because all the wide receivers had to run and stop and then come back for the ball.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. That was something. Oh, hey, real quick, I thought I was losing my mind watching that game a little bit because I watched and I was like, I talked about it earlier, the scheme screens and everything, and then I watched Bo throw to his receivers, and it's like almost every effing time they had to turn around and wait for the ball to come back instead of catching something in stride
or go to the ball. Go to the ball. They had to go and then come back or stop and then catch. And it wasn't catching here. It was catching here, as in behind them, as in it wasn't thrown properly. And that was not good. Right?
Yeah.
Like that. And so when you're talking about the balance of the quarterbacks and the certain things that you want to see, and this is probably a good segue to cover over to Jack's Raiders, and then we'll throw over to the Chargers to close out the show, is when you watch Geno Smith in the Raiders game throwing to his wide receivers and tight ends, almost all of them were with anticipatory, like they were all anticipatory. They were all to where they're going to be, not to where they were.
Yeah.
And Bo Nix certainly played the what I call Russell Wilson ball, which is, they're open, now I throw. And the problem with that as a mental mindset when you are in the game of football at the pro level is most of the time you actually need to throw the wide receiver open, not wait for the wide receiver to be open and then throw the ball. There's a complete difference between A and B. And by the way, Justin Herbert did a fair amount of that as well. He threw guys open. He threw the ball ahead of where only his wide receiver could catch it. He threw it in certain spots that only his wide receivers could catch it. Herbert had a heck of a game in the Chargers game. So again, credit to both of your quarterbacks for basically showing the league and AFC West fans basically the opposite of what Bo Nix did and why it is somewhat concerning unless we start to see Bo basically flip 180.
I mean,
in terms
to
of
be fair, Richie, we did see him do some really good stuff last season, especially with Troy and his rookie year.
I agree. I am not saying he's not capable of it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in order for a quarterback to be true, to make the true progressions that you want to see from the really, really good to getting into that upper tier elite category, which Bo Nix has the skill set to do.
Yeah.
It's whether or not he can apply it, right? There's a complete difference between the two. Herbert has the skill set and has shown that he can apply it. He just hasn't had the complete team in order to then kind of do the right thing to do all the stuff.
You said it.
Now, Herbert also has a tendency to make dumb decisions in key parts of games that he really can't. And that is something that he's got to overcome personally as well. So I'm not going to be without critique on Herbert either.
And if he picks up what I'm going to talk about later on, and what he did in that fourth quarter, then I'm chilling.
Yeah. So Jack, over to you. I want to talk about the Raiders game. Enough about my Broncos. I have a whole host of concerns, like literally a ton of concerns for my Broncos. Although I will give the Titans a ton of credit. I think they have a very good quarterback right now, even as a rookie. I think they have a very good offensive line, and they have a very good defensive line. So I think that we are going to be quite surprised at the Titans and how well they do this season. I do not think that they're going to be as bottom as we thought they might be coming into this year. I think they're going to do much better than we expected, as long as they don't get hurt all over the place. If they stay healthy, I think they have a fighting chance to do some pretty interesting things. At minimum, be spoilers for teams that, are underselling what they have to put on the field, and they're going to be kind of blown away that they got punched in the face.
Sure.
So, Jack, over to you and your win against the Patriots. And to be fair, we guessed the score similarly, except I guessed wrong. I had the Patriots winning and the Raiders losing, and it turned out to be inverted. So congratulations on the win. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
I got that wrong.
I had it a little bit closer, but I still had the Raiders winning this one. But yeah, this was a bigger differential than even what I was really thinking. And it was 20 to 13 Raiders, and it really would have been 10 points, but the Titans kicking a field goal towards the end of the game just to get it down to one score versus going for it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I got to give my shout out first to, and foremost to the guys that I see in the chat with Jack, Sacktown, Raider Zach, and Big E. Salute, brothers. Thank you guys for being here in the chat. We all appreciate it. So always comment, whatever you guys want to put in there. But I got to, first of all, say, I got to give a shout out to my boy Jeff and LBR. They were in New England, and there was where Al Davis, grew up in Massachusetts. So they did like a kind of memorial type plaque ceremony for him. So Mark was there, Jim Plunkett, who started off with the Patriots, and then of course going to the Niners, and then finally going to the Raiders, was there too. So great way to honor Mr. Davis. So with the Raiders, I got my good and got my bad points, with this game. But, with that Belichick tree, they've always been the type of team, we're going to take away one thing, maybe your best player or what you think that you can thrive at. And for them, it was, loading up the box. That whole game, the box was just loaded. Man, there was 40 to 50% of the pass plays was blitzes. So that put a lot of pressure on the run game. It put a lot of pressure on the offensive line, and I can see why, because they had a hard time, except for, Colton Miller, when they're blitzing extra guys, doing, moves, swinging inside, swinging outside, having a hard time, stopping it. They gave up 4 sacks and a lot of pressures. And it really shut Genty down. I mean, he had 19 carries for 38 yards. But the craziest stat of them all, he had 44 yards after first contact. So that just tells you these guys were in the backfield pretty much every single play. So that was what the Titans wanted to do, was to stop him. But
Patriots,
the Patriots. But that's what they wanted to do, is to stop him, and then put the pressure on these offensive linemen, because really nobody's in the same position they were last year, except for maybe DJ Glaze and Colton Miller. We got JPJ moved from center to right guard. We got Parham going from right guard to left guard, and then Meredith, when he did play, now he's going center, first time ever doing that. So So that was the mindset, for them going against the Raiders. But what it did do, it left a lot of one-on-ones, is what it did. Oh, and also I give a shout out to Pete Carroll. Now he's the oldest head coach in NFL history to get a win.
Oh, wow.
So set a new record for that one. But what it did do is it really, when they did get the right protection, Geno Smith had a field day with the secondary.
Yeah.
I mean, he broke an all-time Raider record that was, I think it's 45 years old, if I'm correct. Dan Passerini, for the amount of yards that he got. And I think
362, man.
Yeah, he was number 2. I know your boy's number 3 on that list this week.
No, I said 362 yards. That's a hell of it's a hell of a game.
So, I mean, that's an all-time Raider record now for, a free agent quarterback coming in their very first start, and they look like they were gelling.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked great. I think they had 9 plays over 20 yards. So, there's a big plays. So, again, with that, with them bringing, all that pressure from the Pats, it just opened the doors downfield. And I noticed in the first quarter, which was kind of cool, is that they were really, the Raiders were really trying to get everybody involved. So everybody was coming in and, taking a shot at it. I think he went to 8 different receivers, between the tight ends, the running backs and all the receivers. So everybody got a crack at it. So I like the fact that they tried to just get everybody involved, get your feet wet, get your blood going and make that happen. But with that being said, and again, and by the way, Brock Bowers is fine. So DZ, you're going to expect to see him.
He said, I mean, he said that to Tom Pelissero or Pelissaro, whatever you want to say. He said that to him right after the game. So you guys kind of had I don't want to say you guys had the game in hand, but you know, he was like, yeah, I'm fine. It's probably just a precautionary thing. I'm sure he's just got a sore knee and he'll be ready to rock.
Yeah, he asked to come back in, but you know, when you had a 2-score lead, you know, in the fourth quarter,
yeah,
unless you really need him to come back, you know, why risk your best offensive weapon when you're up 2 scores? So I mean, it made sense. And what a day for missing a full quarter. He had over 100 yards and like over 20 yards a catch as a tight end. It's just, that's scary domination. And it's like, imagine if it was a whole nother quarter of playtime.
To be honest with you, I was really surprised, and this isn't a slight on the Raiders, to be honest, at all. I was really surprised that a Vrabel, and I know it's technically not a Vrabel-led defense because there's they do have a defensive coordinator, but I was really surprised that Vrabel-led team defense was on their heels so much against your guys' passing attack. Like, I was like, hang on, timeout. Like, at first when the game started, I think I was texting Richie. I'm like, okay, let's see. The Raiders look sharp right from the get, man. And I call those scripted plays. So, you know, they come in with their scripted plays, their game plan, and they were just dicing them up. Gino was just dicing up the Patriots, and I'm like, holy crap, look, here we go. And, you know, and every time the Patriots went on offense, I'm like, all right, let's see if these guys can respond, which they didn't. You know, they really didn't. You know, they looked rough. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens later in the game. And it was more of the same from the Patriots, you know, Gino, you know, doing what he wanted. So I was surprised by the Patriots. I mean, I was surprised by the offense from the Raiders, and I was also surprised Vrabel's defense, because usually Vrabel's defenses are very disciplined. They don't really let that kind of stuff happen to them, you know. And I'm going back to his days in Tennessee.
Right, and that's the whole thing. That's why I said in the beginning, it's kind of the Patriot way to, you know, take away one thing, and you know, they definitely focus when you're blitzing as much as they blitzed, which is that's an incredible rate. You know, I saw 2 different reports; they had 2 different numbers, so I just put a range in there: 40 to 50% of the snaps were blitzes. So you're gonna take one thing away and you're gonna give it up on the other side for that. But I will, you know, to switch over again, the offensive line was,
I agree, Raiders
poor, and they need to definitely step it up against, you know, your Chargers, because if they do that again, they're going to be hurting. I'll tell you that.
You're more concerned with your right side, right?
Yes, JPJ was actually, which was a shock. And again, he had a hard time, you know, and that's what, like, you know, Landry, he had 2.5 sacks, you know, going against the right side between Glaze and JPJ. And I guess I'm just wondering, I'm like, did the Raiders make a mistake and pulling them from center to the right guard? I mean, I understand the philosophy, what, you know, Pete's wanting to do here is to put your best 5 out there.
Right.
But you know, when I look at the play that he had last year at center, if this continues, they got to think about bringing him back over.
I don't understand it. I'm sure there's some Raider people who know much better than I do why he's at right guard opposed to center. That probably has to do with who's playing center right now. It's probably better center than guard, right? But yeah, so a little bit of red flags from that right side and from JPJ in that game. But look, Harold Landry, that's a guy I wanted bad. I love his play. He's no slouch, dude. He's a dog. So, you know, you know.
And the reason why I think they really wanted Meredith at center, because Meredith is the lightest, you know, pretty much the lightest guy on the squad. He's like at 290 pounds or something like that. So
that is
trying to get him to go up against like a Chris Jones. I mean, he's proficient in that. But when you got a guy that's like 320 pounds and you're giving up 30 pounds, you know, the pushback is going to happen. So I think they, thought, hey, if we move him over to center, he's going to be able to get help from his left and his right that way. And, make it easier. And where you got a bigger body and like JPJ to go against some of these bigger body, defensive tackles. And I see what the thought process is, but we'll see if it works out. And it'll be a really big test when we play your team, because your team looked pretty damn good, this last week. So I'm really interested to see if this line can hold up against your D line. And I think that's going to be one of the top things that I'm going to be looking at this week. But what I said last week, though, what I said it was going to be a strength for the Raiders, and it purely was the Raiders' defensive line going against their offensive line. Like I said, they had 4 new starters. 2 of them were rookies. Raiders got 4 sacks on them. They kept the running game to a minimum. And unlike the Patriots, the Raiders barely blitzed. They barely even sent anybody. They ran.
They had to cover. They couldn't. They had to cover your guys' weapons, man. That's probably why they didn't blitz.
I'm talking the Raiders' defensive line
you
against.
Guys.
Yeah, that's why I said last week's show that's going to be a strength, and it was. So the Raiders played 49% of their snaps in cover 3, and then pretty much everything else in the cover 2. So they only sent like 4 guys, and they were getting through.
Jack, how come nobody, and I don't remember you or any other in the Raiders talking about Thomas Booker? Where did he come from?
You know what? I did. So Thomas Booker, that was a trade, and I brought it up on a previous show. We traded, Booker for Jacorian Bennett. So Jacorian Bennett was our starting, cornerback last year.
Because he looks good, man.
And I even, I called up, one of my, from Nabman's show, Blue Richards. I called her boyfriend, David, and he's a big Eagles fan. And he was like, oh, man, that guy's was the bottom of our roster. So I'm like, okay, well, if he's the bottom of your roster, I mean, they're so deep, right? They're so deep at defensive tackle, and the guy scores athletically off the charts, then, I can see it. But I was like, holding out because I'm like, I like Bennett because Bennett's a starter, and I don't know Starks, them bringing him in from Green Bay. And I don't know if I trust Porter. And, I felt like, our cornerbacks is a weakness, which when we talk about our game, we'll definitely go into more detail on that too. But, yeah, looking at him, he solidified. He started off, coming in and with a deep room because we got 10 defensive linemen. And he, in a very short period of time, got his way up, and he played well. He even got Baldy gave him national attention this week on there. So I was pretty impressed. He had 3 tackles for a loss, played 59 of the stats. Pass grade was 68.7, run grade 63.5. So pretty damn solid day.
Good trade.
I'm ecstatic, to have him on the squad because, again, I know like all of us, I'd rather build my team from within going out. So I'd rather have that starter on the defensive line versus the starter in the hey, what's up, Victor? Versus a starting cornerback.
I see what you're saying. Okay. And
then I will leave it with this part too. So a player that's bounced around is Ty Blue Kelly. I mean, he's been on like 3 or 4 teams. He got on this squad. I was going, man, maybe they might move him to slot. And, finding out that he made the roster, I was like kind of surprised. I thought he was a potential cut. And then already he got himself up over Porter, and he played decent. It could be Drake May. And again, when you got cover 3 and cover 2s, and you're only rushing 4, there's going to be more help out there. So the lanes are going to be shorter for May to throw. But he actually looked pretty good. So he's like a pleasant surprise.
Another guy that I think deserves a shout out is Jamal Adams.
Oh, yes, sir. Jamal Adams, he had himself a good day. He was, he kind of came in after Edwards or I'm sorry. What's his name? Landon Roberts. Sorry, I forgot. Landon Roberts. He got hurt with elbow. So then it was kind of a split between the other two linebackers out there. So he did look impressive, and he still has just a knack of tackling.
Yeah.
But I will say this: somebody had a resurrection this week. Was Devin White? Devin White looked like the old Devin White. He led the team. He had 11 tackles and 1 for loss, and he was just thumping.
So Jack, you're talking about that D tackle or the defensive lineman there.
Booker. Yep.
Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind is that the Eagles want a certain prototype on their D line. They're looking for bigger dudes that can move. So they're looking kind of for the rare air athletic freaks on the D line. They're looking for like the Jordan Davises. They're looking for the guys that are
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, like the guys that are like 6'something", 6'5", 6'4", 6'6", 300, 300 to 330 that are super athletic. And they're looking for guys that are all in very similar molds because they like to rotate them in and out so regularly. Well, the problem is that if you have a tweener in there or a guy that maybe doesn't fit that exact mold per se, it would be difficult to rotate him in because then he would be kind of the guy that the other team could key in on because he is not of the same, we'll call it build. and that could be problematic, right? Let the other guys run through, but then target the small guy to kind of force yards. And I'm wondering if that's really what it is with the Eagles. It wasn't so much that they thought he was a bad player, but more just the fact that he didn't fit their prototype. And because he didn't fit their prototype, it just didn't make sense.
Well, again, it's just, I think, the depth of the Eagles. And you're right about that, Richie. I mean, when you get those two guys and they're like, 320, 330, Booker's like, he's like 6'3", 301. But we also got to remember what was the player. Let me switch this over to the Patriots because D tackle also left the Eagles to go over to the Patriots, and I am trying to remember his name. Oh, Milton Williams. So he got a hefty contract from the Patriots. So I don't know what his size is or anything like that, but yeah, he went from like you getting paid like, rookie style money to like 10 plus million a year. So that just shows you the depth between the two teams, the Eagles defense. And then you got to look at the connection though too with Howie Rosen. And then again, the two Eagles personnel, Howie's, right-hand man that came over here and having that connection to make that trade work. Because how often do you guys really see a player for a player? No picks involved. You don't see that very often.
Not these days. It seems like draft capital is always thrown in with these trades. Yeah, so player for player it seems to be more of a rare thing, which you would actually think that would have been like a more common trade, right? Like, okay, we're deep in this, secondary. We need this guy. We'll trade you that guy. Yeah. Yeah.
And and again, here's like just a fun fact, just an AFC fun fact. This is the first time in 23 years that KC has started off in last place. How awesome is that?
2014. I thought it was 2014. Has it been 23?
That's what I read.
Okay, yeah. Everybody else, yeah. Okay.
It's the first time they've started in last, which basically means in order for that stat to be true, they would have to own last place outright.
Yeah.
I think I read started, so not finished. But I when I saw it, that just put a smile on her face that, after winning, and dominating this division so much.
Look,
like finally.
I'm pumping the brakes.
I know, but it's one game, but it's still nice.
Look, yeah, I've had, let's just say football this weekend was so stress-free. I was relaxed. I didn't have any anxiety. I got to watch your guys' games and not worry about a damn thing. I was very happy. Let's just say.
Right. Well, that would, like one of the things I also got to give a shout out to all the coaches, because you know what? This is something that we kind of talked about in the off season. There's grown men running this show now, and it felt different. So after the first drive, and then it seems like things kind of calmed down, and the Patriots looked, there wasn't much scoring going on. It's just more of like going back and forth. And to see the second half, the transformation in making adjustments on both the offense and the defensive side, I haven't seen that in a long time. Usually in the past, it doesn't get any better. It seems like these coaches keep running the same plays and not adjusting. And in this game, it felt, and you can see the adjustments that were out there. So I got to give kudos to the coaches, because as soon as you said that, DZ, I totally forgot about it, because I'm like I'm not used to it. So yeah, I felt comfortable. I didn't feel threatened or like, oh, here we go again. We're gonna be ahead and just throw it in the dumpster and lose at the end of the game. So
I had
that
those
really
same sentiments, Jack. I had those same exact sentiments Friday night, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I do have something for Richie though.
Oh.
So I got to, I'm going to give kudos here to a Bronco. So Cortland Sutton getting his 33rd touchdown now is tied or just in top 10. It's actually tied top 10 Broncos history with Eric Decker. And then, Eric Decker was tied with Eric Decker, but he's either top 10 by himself or he's tied. And then I wrote down with Eric Decker with over 5,401 yards, which also, Decker was touchdowns. Yards is 10th as well to pass Emmanuel Sanders. So good job for Cortland Sutton. Now he's top 10 in Broncos history.
Richie doesn't want to smile. He doesn't want to hear that. Just kidding.
Look, I mean, I'm never going to cheer against a guy that's on the field for my team. But at the same time, I think when you're paying someone good money to outperform and all that kind of stuff, you need to make sure that they catch the ball, they make the plays, they do the right things, they block and all that sort of stuff. And, you really need the elite play from those players that are getting paid in the upper tier of the league. And if you don't get the production based on the pay that you're playing some of these players, especially in the upper part of your team's cap space, you will struggle to be successful. And that's just a fact. So as an example, with Von Miller, he was on the 5th-year option there in Super Bowl 50, if I'm not mistaken, if my math is mathing correctly. And we were then at a spot where, when we paid Von all that money, you needed him to step out and continue that level of play if you were to be successful. He did well, but he kept on getting hurt. Similarly, when you pay other big contracts on your team, you need them to also show out. Otherwise, you're not going to get the return on that investment as a team. And that's a problem. Well,
and I agree. You gotta pay and get what you're going to get for that money. So, that you just segued great for, again, one of my, the best Raiders on the team on the defense is Max. Max got a sack, 2 QB hits. And he became the 3rd player in Raiders history to get over 60.5 sacks.
I think you guys were the 6th rated defense this last week.
I wouldn't be surprised, just because, what they did, to the Patriots. Again, I don't feel it's going to be the same way when, we talk about our game. That's a whole different ball of wax, that's for sure.
Now, you guys did have, I think you guys had 7 penalties in that game. I don't want to harsh on it. You guys got the W, right? So we can nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
You guys did have 7 penalties, which I don't know. It seems like some games had a ton of penalties, other games didn't.
Actually, I'll say it this: they had 9 penalties for 77 yards.
And
a lot of those were on the offensive line. Like I was mentioning.
Right?
No, the Raiders had 9 penalties for 77 yards.
Oh, so it's more than 7. Okay.
Yeah, and Patriots had 8 for 70.
Okay, and then there's another stat that I was looking at. Geno or the offense, now, was this the Raiders or was this the Patriots? Was 5 for 13 on third downs.
That was the Raiders.
Yeah. That
the
seems
Raiders
like
were 5 for 13 and Patriots were 4 for 14.
Okay. So that's probably something that you guys want to see get better, especially on those third downs. I mean, look, we're nitpicking. You got the W, but, that being said, you guys were playing a 4-13 team, coming in. You got the W. You got it, in pretty good fashion. But I would say some of those things probably need to be cleaned up.
And I should have said this in the beginning. I just kind of forgot. Because all my notes are out of order because I didn't have time to put them in order.
Yeah, my notes are.
But it was a downpour out there. So again, one of my the guys I saluted to earlier that went out for that memorial plaque ceremony, they said when they were in the Patriots parking lot, it was a swamp. So the ground was wet. It was raining. It didn't look like a hard rain or anything like that on TV.
Like a mist, huh? Or something.
Yeah, but everything was just wet, and that could play for everybody.
Yeah.
So the conditions were not the best.
I saw another thing. It was like the red zone scoring in the red zone wasn't that great, and that's probably that one touchdown, out of all this passing. So, that could attribute to the weather. Very, it did. From the TV, it didn't look like it, but obviously, pre-game they were like, "This is the game." I'm like, I'm checking my fantasy rosters, like, "Oh God, who do I got going in this game?" But yeah.
Still so DZ
and victory. I hope so, bro. I hope so. It's only one game.
And DZ, as we transition over to talking about your Chargers in Week 1 and your win there, I think we do need to have a discussion here about the fact that Travis Kelce has Taylor Swift, but Justin Herbert said, "Hold my beer. I'm dating Madison."
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm showing my age. I had no clue who the hell she was. When those rumors first came out, I immediately jumped on the phone. I'm like, "Who's Madison Beer?" And she's some pop star. Obviously, probably, teens, 20s, 30-year-olds. That's her type of music. I was like listening to her music. I was like trying to show my fiance. I'm like, "Hey, check this out. Let's see what this is about."
Well, is she cute?
She's very cute. She's very cute. But Justin to me is like a guy that was created by Disney, and she's got some controversial stuff. So this is going to be a weird. I think someone said she's like only 5'6" or 5'4". Justin's 6'6", dude. So
he's over a foot.
There's pictures of them like together, and they're like polar opposites. But good for him, dude. Like he's been so focused. He still is super focused on football. Like that guy lives, eats, and breathes football. So having a little bit of a little distraction, it's not the worst thing, right? But
well, no, not if she's cute. Shoot.
There's a fantasy name that I wanted. It's like smoking the herb, drinking the beer, and I was like, "Oh, it's perfect heading into this season." But I want to Victory Lap ask the question, like, what do I think about starting the season off with 3 divisional opponents? I think it's batshit crazy. I think it's not ideal at all because those games count for 2.5, kind of, and every time you play a divisional opponent, it's a war. It is an absolute bloodbath between each other because they've got familiarity with each other. They don't like each other, and it's always giving each other the best of what they got. So starting the season off like that, that's tough. And, you know, heading into my game against the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, I was nervous as all hell. And then I see a post pop up, and I think it was Kay Adams. She puts a post up, and it's showing the field. She's like, look how beautiful the field looks. And I zoom in, and I swear to you guys, I was one of the first to do this on X. And since I'm not verified, everybody took what I posted and made their own stuff, and it got viral. And I'm like, I look at the field and I send it to a group chat. I'm like, WTF is this? And it was half, you know, each end zone had the teams. One side was Chargers, the other side was Chiefs. I'm like, this is complete BS.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Then way later on, it comes out that they're like, oh, this is going to be the new thing going forward. But it was like the NFL. It was like the NFL going, by the way, like, you know, Hunt or whoever the hell owns the Chiefs, you know, was like, can we have our, like, it was one of these, it was so snaky and such BS. And I hear people, oh, quit whining. It doesn't matter what's painted on the field. I'm like, look, dude, already the Chief fans are all, you know, Swift Nation or whatever, because she performs down all the time. Ton of Chief fans were at that game. It was probably, I would say, 70% Chiefs fans. But it was a mixture of, you know, just like when you see them in Europe, tons of other fans or whatever. So I was already ticked off by that. And then get another tweet. Mekhi Becton is questionable with an illness. And I'm just like, oh, God, here we effing go. And I'm like, they had to go play, and no offense to Brazilians, but they had to go play in a third world effing country, 14 hours away or whatever that flight was. And now this dude's sick. And this is a guy we're relying on, you know, especially with this O-line. I was nervous as hell about it. Well, come to find out, he does play. He puts up this cryptic post on Instagram, and it matched up. So he ended up to play. But that game, I mean, surprised the hell out of me from the get, man. Greg Roman had them playing 10 personnel, like right off the bat, which we didn't see at all last season. And if you guys don't know what 10 personnel is, it's 4 receivers, you know, that's 4 wide. And, you know, everybody talking about the Chargers, every media pundit, us included, Chargers won at ground and pound. We drafted Omarion Hampton, signed Najee Harris, right? Signed Mekhi Becton. Well, I also kind of hinted at this last week's show, is the one weakness of the Chiefs last season was their secondary. And we saw in the offseason what the Chargers did. They brought back Keenan Allen right after Mike Williams retired. They drafted Trey Harris in the 2nd round, drafted Keandre Lambert-Smith in the 5th round, and around in Gasson, they traded up, and there was tight end. Now, he was inactive. So we're like thinking, okay, they're going to run. They're not going to throw as much. Well, they flipped the script on us, and it's just like kind of like Jack's game. They go air raid. They go air raid on the Chiefs, and it works. I've got notes everywhere, so bear with me. But
that's all right. While you're looking at your notes, the one thing
DZ, that was. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say you're right. It is BS when you're giving up a home game. You're giving up a home game, then you should be paying it on both sides.
I hope season ticket holders do a class action lawsuit or something, because I think it's complete horseshit, man. Like, I feel bad for season ticket holders and that kind of stuff. This isn't. You should never play international games with divisional opponents. It would have made sense if this was an NFC opponent. But then somebody also said that Jim Harbaugh chose not to block this game. So I'm like, so he chose not to block this game because he wanted to protect the Steelers game or whatever it was. But I'm like, so then the NFL decides to try to screw them, to try to like prop the Chiefs back up, per se. Like that's what I was getting out of this.
Well, I actually agree with your take. I actually think that the NFL absolutely was trying to prop the Chiefs back up. I think what they are looking at right now is Kansas City Chiefs came off a Super Bowl loss. They still believe they have the potential of maintaining like a Patriots dynasty type thing, and they want to try to stretch it out like they did with the Patriots. Why? Because it's always great to have a villain in the league, and it's always great when the villain ultimately wins. At the end of
Script
the day,
writers, man.
Yep.
Right.
At the end of the day, there's an E in NFL, which is entertainment, and NFL wants to ensure that the game is entertaining. Now, on the flip side of that, from the sports side of things, which I know the NFL likes to sometimes forget, like that was absolute trash. So you mean to tell me when the NFL then throws like, I don't know, like the Jags and Patriots in
London
over
or
there in
something.
Brazil or London, that they're not going to have the home team with both things, or they're not going to come back and say, we're sorry, there was such backlash from when we did this with the Chargers that we went ahead and painted only the one home team on the end zones. Like, I'm sorry, you can miss me with the crap. The whole point is you did that on purpose because you wanted the Chiefs hype because you knew how many Chiefs fans were going to be there, and you simply caved to the pressure. So stop it. Stop being an idiot. Stop thinking that I'm an idiot for not being able to see what you did. And frankly, what it does is it undermines the integrity of the league, because if you say and do things that are false, you are never, ever going to be able to gain credibility with the fan base when you actually need them to give you grace for things that may actually be misrepresented about you in the media.
And I have a theory on this as well, is I think this has to do with the influential powers of some owners in the NFL. And Mark Hunt, or I don't know if it's Mark, but the owner of the Chiefs, I think he can swing his PP around. I think he's got some of that power, kind of like what the Philly has, especially with the success the Chiefs have had, in the last decade, it seems. And, he was down in Brazil, and I think he was down in Brazil, but he did an interview saying it was no secret. They want all the international games they can get. They want to become the world's team. Like the Cowboys are America's team. He said, we want to become the world's team. So this is what I see them trying to push is they want to push this Chiefs are worldwide thing and get into every international market, which whatever, like do what you want to do, but you can't do that at the expense of other teams. That's my opinion on that.
Well, I think what'd be interesting to see is like Taylor Swift, and again, her being, international and everything else, again, that just brings, again, like you said, all the fans in the stadium. I'm just kind of curious, like how many record sales did she have, during that weekend, because of all the promotion, linked between Kansas City and the Swifties, they're kind of tied a little bit. So that'd be a fun thing to hear about.
I got one other thing on the Chargers game, just generally speaking, in terms of your game plan. It's also completely counterintuitive, because the overall game plan that has been touted and frankly been shown to work if you have a good enough team to make it work is run the ball, pass rush against Mahomes, own the time of possession against the Chiefs, and try to work in a pick in there to steal an extra play, like an extra possession.
Yeah.
And that has generally been the 1 to 3 MO to being able to actually beat the Chiefs. When like those that beat the Chiefs, that's generally how they beat them.
Yeah.
And I think Harbaugh, as you have a gifted head coach. I don't think anyone has ever said Harbaugh is not a good or gifted head coach. I've never heard one person say that your head coach.
He's great.
Yeah. So I've never heard anyone say anything poor. I think he recognized what you pointed out on the show. I think he recognized that the Chiefs' weakness, for whatever reason last season, was the totality of their secondary. They have individually some very good players on the secondary.
Yes, they do.
They truly do. But when you look at them as a total group, as a cohesive unit, safeties and corners combined, there are weaknesses within that element of their roster. And with the right guys in the right plays with the right scripts, they can be exploited. And I find it fascinating that your coach was able to lay out a secondary blueprint with the right quarterback, the right weapons, can actually yield results against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Look, I agree, but I'll take it a slight different step or a slight sidestep to this. Is I think that offensively, this has probably been one of the best games I've seen Greg Roman call. And, you know, yeah, they got the win, but Greg Roman has, with the fans, a lot of criticism. Also with Ravens fans, you know, they wanted him out of Baltimore, you know, rightfully so on some aspects. But what Greg Roman did is call an excellent game. He trusted Justin. He like some of the stuff, and you know, you get into hours long show, but some of the stuff of the play designs at the time during the game against certain defensive fronts, it just was like, wow, like what a freaking great play. And, you know, hats off to Justin's receivers. They all had an amazing game. And look, I think I kind of made a joke about this. I don't know if anybody watched the Dallas game. CeeDee Lamb was dropping balls like crazy. It was like some Freaky Friday crap was going on because it was like QJ and him switched hands because QJ all of a sudden remembered how to catch the damn ball and had 2 touchdowns. He did drop one. He could have had 3. I was blown away by QJ.
He lost weight. At least it looked like he did.
I'm like, man, if you keep this up, you are going to be one dangerous mofo because he's got the size, speed, and if he could just get that crap out of his head and play football and just not, you know, think. That's what he has to do. Don't think about it. Just do your job. He's going to have one hell of a year and be a great weapon for Justin. But, on the Chiefs, man, right out the gate, you know, they had friendly fire. Travis Kelce just obliterates Xavier Worthy and just dislocates his shoulder.
Oh, my God.
I think that was like 3 plays in or 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was like that Xavier with Rashee Rice, you know, being suspended. That's their main guy, right? So right out of the game, I'm just like, oh wow, this really happened. And you know, I'm seeing him on the sideline holding it, and they got people all there, and then he's ruled out of the game. And I'm just like, okay, well, I was like, they got Juju, they got Hollywood, they had Kelce still, whatever.
But he's still their deep threat, which is going to stretch the defense. So Kelce was even on, you know, or I read some articles from Kelce apologizing, you know, about that play and just not running into him. And what a game changer. I mean, that's huge. And I do want to just highlight, you know, one thing I see in the chat. So Victory, when Victory said, you know, and I wanted to ask you on this one too, DZ, said the refs crews disagree. You know, again, we will keep saying that the Kansas City Chiefs always gets the calls. This week they had 10 penalties for 71 yards where, you know, your charges were disciplined, only 6 for 49. Were these just like these calls that you were seeing, were they just so blatant? You know, where, you know, it gave the refs like no choice but to throw these, you know, flags or.
Well, I'm glad Juwan Taylor finally is getting flagged. That guy jumps. He false starts, jumps off, you know, that's their right tackle. He's overpaid, and I'm sure Chiefs can't wait for him to get out of Kansas City. You know, because what is it like? I don't know if it was last year or 2 years ago or whatever. Every fan, you know, of all the other teams were like, why is this guy not getting penalized for leaving early on every snap? So I think he got like 2 penalties, 2 false starts, but the crew, Carl Schaefer's, it was Carl Schaefer's, I believe. Don't quote me. I'm not 100 on the last name. When the Chiefs fans found out that it was his crew reffing the game, they were not too happy about it because apparently he's the only reffing crew they haven't been able to buy out. So he definitely, you know, called penalties against the Chiefs. But look,
It was really good to see. Like again, any team have less penalty than Casey. So that was
yeah. I mean, look, there was a preseason game where we had a ton of penalties, and I was kind of worried about this. I talked about this last week. I'm like, we cannot shoot ourselves in the foot coming into this game against the Chiefs. You do not give them extra ammunition, right? And we didn't have any turnovers. Justin didn't throw any interceptions. The penalties, sure, there's a few penalties. That's going to happen, especially against a great team like the Chiefs are. Or are they still? Who knows? This is where I, like, as a Curtin Chargers fan my whole life, this is where I'm like cautiously optimistic, heading into this next game or this season. It's because I'm like, did the Chiefs just not come in? I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the game. They came out in halftime like 5 minutes late, walking out. You know what I mean? And the whole Chargers sideline are like, what the hell's going on? Why are they not getting flags? Where are the Chiefs at? They just they walked out like they owned the place. You know what I mean? It was weird, and it was in a way disrespectful. So it's like the Chiefs did some things that the Chargers fed off of. And look, there was a play, everybody saw the slap from around the world where Tier Tart gave Kelsey a solid open hand punch to the face, and hats off to him for that. But I was like, oh great, here we go. Now he's getting ejected, because we just saw what happened with Jalen Carter. Obviously, it was kind of different things, and we also with Shiloh Sanders in preseason where he punched the guy, and it was almost like the refs, or it was McCauley was on the broadcast. He was like, since it was an open hand, it's only a 15-yard penalty, and it's up for discretion on whether it's ejectable or not, or something like that. And luckily he didn't get ejected, because Tier Tart also had, I believe it was like 2 or 3 batted passes on Mahomes. Wow. But I'm also going to give credit to Mahomes this game. Mahomes had some absolute black magic voodoo crazy crap that he would pull out of his ass. This guy, look, we can say what we want about Mahomes. He knows how to play today's game, and he carried his team on his back, and they obviously weren't good enough. I felt like the Chargers were a complete team on both sides of the balls, weapons, everything. But Mahomes did some stuff that made me question my sanity. I'm like, how did he do that? How did he do that? But we got the win 27-21. It felt like it was bigger than that. But we had the lead the whole game. So, that was one thing that I noticed that was really important. Chargers O-line that I was really questioning coming in played very well. Joe Alt was probably,
oh my God,
he was the number 1 left tackle in the league this last week. 0, 0, 0, 0 all the way down the board. Didn't allow any pressures, any QB hits, nothing. And it was almost the same thing with Mekhi Becton. And Mekhi Becton was fighting for his effing life because of what he was dealing with. He would come out of the game, get oxygen. The guy was just drenched on the sidelines. He would catch his breath while Jamari Sawyer filled in. So they were rotating him and out like that. But
to add on to one thing you said about Alt, again, 0, 0, 0s. And I looked up 0 pressures in 41 attempts, the highest rated left tackle with a 91.4 pass blocking grade.
Yeah.
I mean, wow.
But then look at check this out. Check this out. This is what. Then I hear Chiefs fans go, "Well, our D-line is trash. Like our pass rush is trash." And I'm like, "What? Timeout." I'm like, "Am I hearing this right?" Now all of a sudden, you guys have a trash D-line, and this is why you guys didn't have more success. Because look, the O-line in the totality didn't allow any sacks. Now this is where like stats get confusing. They did sack Herbert twice, but it was not O-line designated, like whatever. It was not within the O-line parameters of why they got those sacks. They had to bring the house a couple times to get some sacks on Herbert. And Drew Tranquil, ex-Charger, is a damn good blitzing linebacker. So, but screw him.
That's what I said about Spillane. Oh, and he had a horrible day too. Not to get off topic, so that was good.
And there was much rejoicing.
I have like 2 pages of notes, and we're not going to get through all this stuff, obviously. But there was some good, and then there was also some bad. And one kind of bad thing was I don't think they were ready, or I don't think they're 100% with their run game. Let's just say. Because the pass blocking was upper echelon, I believe, especially go against the Chiefs. And now apparently they're not a good defense. Who knows? But it's weird that these run blocking guys that they brought in were doing better as pass blocking than run game. Because it was a very pedestrian stat line in the run game between Hampton and Najee. Najee, I believe, only had like two plays, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the way Hampton runs is awesome. The guy falls forward. He fights for yards. He's a powerful back. I just think they're going to have to – this running game and between the offensive line and the running backs is going to take a little while to mesh and get better as the season goes along. And I'm sure it will get better as it goes along. And we'll see it in week 2. See if they try that week 2. But going off of, let's see, another good thing is that we were 63% in the red zone. I like that. I think that was ranked 3rd this week. Herbert was 3 in quarterback efficiency, EPA per play. Another great stat. I think Amenahue and Dana and Nandi from the Chiefs, 0% win rate against the O-line. Chiefs had 3 straight punts to start this game off, which is only the third time in the Mahomes era. So,
wow.
Yeah, Chargers were all over them. They had a great game plan coming into Brazil. Now, here's where Richie said something earlier in the show that I said I'd talk about in the fourth quarter about Justin Herbert. Justin in the fourth quarter was 9 for 9, threw 91 yards, 1 touchdown, had a passer rating of 145.8 in the fourth quarter, and also had that, I believe it was a 13 or 19-yard scamper to seal the deal when Chris Jones made the mistake of going inside instead of keeping outside contain, and to seal the deal. So that's a good sign. The defense had 2 sacks, 6 hits, 19 pressures, which, if you guys remember the last week, all last season, our defense only had 30 pressures on them. So we already 19 pressures. That's more than half. So we'll see what happens in the second game in Arrowhead. I'm sure the Chiefs will be ready with a healthy Rashee or a healthy Worthy and Rashee Rice. Let's see. I already talked about the 10 personnel, which kind of surprised me. So play action, 9 for 11. Intermediate throws, 8 for 10. In breakers, 11 for 13. All really good stats you want to see from your quarterback and your weapons. Some surprising things kind of getting back into the game, like the personnel. There was only 2 tight ends in this game for the Chargers. It was Disley and Conklin. And I was surprised that the rookie that they traded up to get did not play in this game. He was a healthy scratch. And Conklin had a hell of a catch and run. And then one of the Chiefs defenders made a great play on him and knocked the ball out. And Ladd McConkey made a really heads up, really intelligent play and hit the ball out instead of trying to jump on the ball. He hit the ball out. Yeah, it was, it garnered a penalty, but, it stopped the Chiefs from getting the ball. Let's see. Chiefs on, I think it was their running game was 41 yards on 10 carries or something like that. Mahomes did have 57 yards on 6 rushes. Mahomes,
but you
like
kept Pacheco down to 5 carries for 25 yards. That was their top running back. So
yeah,
you guys did a good job stopping the run.
So that was the thing coming into the season is, there was a lot of talk about letting Puna go and this and that. And I said, look, man, let's wait and see on these guys that they bring in that are more of a scheme fit for this defense. And we sucked at stopping the run. And that's how teams would put games away from us. They'd run out the game on us. They'd run out the fourth quarter or run out the second half. I'm not saying this is going to happen every week, but they did a really dang good job. Or you could say the Chiefs, abandoned the run early. Who knows? But, yeah, Mahomes did get 57 yards. I mean, that guy, geez Louises, good luck trying to stop him. He did do some chicken shit stuff on the sideline.
I was going to ask about that, but I know we're running lower on time.
He does this bullshit where he's trying to step out of, he's going for that out of bounds, and defenders, they kind of step back, kind of loosen up, like, okay, and he trucks Dante Jackson or who? Yeah, I think it was Dante, and I'm just like, what are you doing, bro? Like, and then it's good to see that people who follow the game or have played the game are calling that out and saying this is BS. This guy should have a target on him anytime he goes out of bounds now. People should be lighting him up if he wants to try to play that game. So, look, and I saw Chiefs fans, oh, yeah, he's so tough. I'm like, look, dude, Justin did it his rookie year, and the coaches told him, you're not doing that again. You're not doing that. Just go out of bounds. You're not trucking anybody. So there was that. Hampton, very pedestrian. I wouldn't say it was a great overall game, but I liked some of the stuff I saw. It was 15 for 48 yards. Really, 2 targets, got 13 yards. So there. Let me see. I got some other stuff on here. Henley made a hell of an open field. That's our linebacker. So one bad thing that did happen, Denzel Perryman got an ankle sprain, and so probably not playing against the Raiders. So they did some stuff where they'd only have one linebacker there in times, and that was Deion Henley.
Yeah, it's a high ankle sprain. He's out, I think, 4 weeks at least.
Yeah, I don't know if it probably will end up being that way. I do like some of the guys they have behind him. He's a thumper, and you kind of like him in there, especially when people. It's not that they. Well, that's true, Biggie. Yeah, that's true as well.
So I actually, if I can quickly mention this, and then we'll go into our week 2 games. This is actually the underlying thing that I believe that the NFL needs to sort out, and fast. Like, I mean, they need to come out and make an announcement. They need to do something. So the NFL needs to make a decision. If a quarterback is not going to be able to get hit when they're running up the sideline, then they need to do something. I like this version of Jack. He doesn't speak. No, just kidding.
He did something.
No, his phone crapped out. Anyways, welcome back, Jack. So back to this thing here.
Yeah.
This goes for any quarterback.
Gavin Newsom's cutting off our internet.
Of course he did. He needs more hair gel, so he needs to save some money somehow. But the point being, when you're looking at what's happening here, and Big E, thank you for making the comment. Love the comment. I completely agree. Quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and like some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL are capitalizing on the overprotection of the quarterback and the not so much memes, but more parodies that we've been seeing on like the football shows and stuff, where they're like, oh no, the quarterback, quick, let's get the pillow, the blanket, and the mattress and make sure they're placed down gently on the ground so they don't get hurt. Like all that kind of crap, right? And I think those are fair comments that are being made by the pundits, but it really is more of a parody comedy of the actual issue here.
Yeah.
A quarterback is either a runner when they're running out of the pocket along the sideline, or they're not. The NFL needs to pick one. They need to then put rules in place for that. And then they also then need to make some kind of counter rule to allow for whatever they end up doing so that it is fair for the defenders. Because this is just not a good look. I will be in full disclosure what I want to see. If a quarterback is a runner, I want him to be able to get hit by the opposing defense so hard that they get broken in half. Now, I don't want this cross tackle like that we're seeing in some regards that you can actually like truly like, you know, knock a guy out cold or anything like that. I don't think that's fair or appropriate. But I want a big thumping linebacker to come in, or a defensive tackle or a defensive end, and literally watch a quarterback bend backwards the wrong way and get smoked, because I don't want these quarterbacks doing stupid things like we're seeing from Patrick Mahomes running along the sideline. I think it's the only fair approach. You're either a runner or you're not. If they can gain the yards, they need to get hit like a running back. And if they're not a runner, then they need to stop running, and they need to have a flag to stop the play dead. Like you just can't have middle ground. You got to stop it. And that's, you know, we'll call that Richie's rant for the day, but it pisses me off when I see this crap, because football is supposed to be a contact sport, not a flag game, and we need to stop it.
I agree. I 100% agree. I'll transition into next week's game. Right before I do that. Right before I do that.
It's on, right? It's on.
Especially going against these Raiders. You know, I talked about how the offensive line and the run blocking aspect with the running backs, they need to work on that. And then on the flip side, on their side of the ball, the secondary gave up, I think it was like 2, it might have been 3 explosive plays. And it seemed like the communication was lacking. And why that makes sense is especially going against a team with, in my opinion, much better weapons than the Chiefs have. I think Kelsey is just nowhere compared to what Bowers' level is right now. Their running backs don't compare to Genty. Their wide receivers, maybe Rashid, you know, I would say maybe give it to their wide receivers if they're all there. But yeah, so those are some things that they need to work on coming into this game. And also, you know, the pass rush, right? I think the Chargers were more focused on contain with Mahomes, not letting him get out of the pocket, which what happens? He rushes for 57 yards and he makes some crazy throws on 4th downs, which he was doing. So we will see if they try to dial up the pressure this week against Geno, or bring some more exotic blitzes on Geno, which, you know, they've crossed. This offseason, they were cross-training the linebackers, the safeties, and cornerbacks into they were all having them do blitzes and pass rush. They were doing a lot of stuff. So Minter is going to have to dial up some stuff because, you know, going against the Raiders with these weapons, I could see the quick passing game. Albeit, you know, Jack, you said it, with Geno having how many throws?
9 throws over 20 yards.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to quit on Dante Thornton. You know, that's his dude. I thought Trey Tucker had an amazing game for you guys. We saw Jack Besh get involved. I think he had a couple, 1 or 2 catches or something like that.
1 catch, 23 yards.
Yep. Jacoby Myers is still a factor. Yeah, so I feel like the offense is going to run through Bowers. I'm like, okay, you know, to stop these guys, it's going to run through Bowers. You got to have an answer for him. And a lot of people are just put Derwin James on him.
I was going to bring that up. I think that's what your team needs to do.
So I could see them doing that because I saw them do that. They had Derwin on Kelsey the majority of the game and pretty much took Kelsey out of the whole game. But then they would pass Kelsey off to like a cornerback or, a DB. I don't know if they're going to put him on Bowers the whole game, but because they like him playing so close to the line of scrimmage. But I could definitely see that. I could see him try to slow him down. I don't know if you're going to stop Bowers per se. I do like our cornerbacks. Now I am concerned.
Well, let me go on the offense before we go to the defense. Okay. So I see the again, the quarterbacks similar. I still give the edge to Herbert for sure. And you guys bringing back Keenan Allen, they did not look like they lost a step. They know each other so well, and he is definitely a red zone threat, which, again, that is like one of the things, that Geno is not the greatest at. But I could see both teams kind of airing it out against each other just based on what we saw this last week. I mean, our running backs were not that far apart in yardage and carries. And, I'm looking – I was pretty impressed that, again, it's not Genty. Again, you're going against Pacheco, and, their offensive line is kind of suspect. I know my Raiders' offensive line is suspect. Can they run block? Can they figure it out? Or is it just the Patriots stacking the box every single play and blitzing, 40 to 50% of the time? So it's going to be interesting to see that. And I think, one of the interesting matchups, again, I know Alt's going to win his side of the field, and he's going to go
Kuntz, right? That's Kuntz, yeah.
Kuntz, and, it's Tyree Wilson, which they both got sacked. So Tyree is finally getting in that, that area or the zone, maybe because it's a contract year for him, where he's starting to play better. So that's going to be one of the key matchups. And on the other side, DJ Glaze against Cleo Mack, which I did see that play with, Mahomes running around the edge, and Cleo didn't look all that fast on that play. Yeah. And it looked like there was 10, 15 yards of separation. So I kind of see the offenses are kind of going to do the same thing. They may struggle a little bit in the run because, again, I like my defensive front. I know you like your defensive front and what they did last week. So I think it's going to be kind of more of a pass-heavy game, going into this.
I can see
and
that.
the running game may be a lot of, again, play action, and then you pick your poison.
Very similar
on that running game.
On both teams, running play action a lot, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They'll try to keep each other honest with the running game, and then it's just going to be play action. Here we go. Very similarly built offenses, in my opinion.
And so, kind of now, switching it over to the defensive side, again, I was really impressed with the Chargers, run stuff and ability. I was shocked, actually, because that's been one of your weaknesses. And again, I'm a big Poona Ford guy too. I like him at defensive tackle. So I was kind of shocked that, they did so well against the Chiefs. And I think they're going to do some different things with Genty, this week. So that'll be really interesting. I think our rookie running backs going against the defensive fronts on both sides. So that's going to be super fun. And, I did say this, in, Bill and Kona, I'm like, they're kind of similar. So far we're talked about similarities on the offense. So far similarities on the defense. But where I will give, I think the Raiders have a little bit more, firepower on the weaponry on the offense, except for Keenan Allen still does scare the shit out of me because he torched us for years. But
wait, Lad McConkey doesn't scare you?
Well, again, Lad's good. Okay, he's good. But Keenan is that player.
Breaking news. Lad is better than Keenan ever was.
Ever?
Yeah.
Ever? Really? Okay. Well, I don't agree with that.
I'm saying that
I think
Lad
good.
is a better receiver than Keenan was ever at the peak of his career.
At the peak of his career? How many Pro Bowls did that guy make? It's like
look, different time, different era. Lad is a special breed of wide receiver. Now, look, what Lad has what Keenan has that Ladd doesn't is height and size. So that's a disadvantage for Ladd.
Man, I don't know. I mean, shoot. I guess I got to see more. You know, I like him. I think he is a special player, and I think he was like one of the better draft picks that, you know, the Chargers had besides Alt. That's for sure. So you got two bona fide starters for years and years and years to come. But yeah, you know, Keenan, again, just seeing him torch my team for so many times and all the AFC West over the years. He still puts fear in me. He runs great routes. He's got that connection, that connection, you know, with Herbert. So he is still definitely a threat, you know, on your offense. But now, again, going defense aside, I think the defensive fronts, they match up pretty darn well with each other. Yeah, Cleo is definitely not, you know, Max Crosby, but where you definitely got me, I mean, is your cornerback room. Your corners look a whole lot better than the Raiders' corners. Kai Blue Kelly, like I said in the beginning of the show, came out of nowhere, was on different teams, and now a starter, but we don't have the depth. We don't have the players like your team has. So that is definitely a big advantage for your squad. I will definitely say that, DZ.
So I agree on some. I agree. I think our secondary as a whole, on paper and from what they showed last year, is better than what you guys have, and that includes the safeties as well. There's one guy on this secondary in the cornerback room, Cam Hart. You know who Cam Hart is, right?
No doubt. He had 4 tackles this week.
You know, Cam is a different type of cornerback, man, but the Chiefs put their Tyquan Thornton guy on him, and Tyquan just, you know, Tyquan's like your Dante, man, with that speed. He just roasted Cam for like 39 yards or something. Cam can get got, right? He's a large cornerback, but he doesn't have that. He can't cover these explosive wide receivers. So that's going to be interesting to see who they have line up against him. I could see Chip Kelly trying to get his speedsters on him, trying to get a jump on him. I really like the free agent we brought in from Pittsburgh, Jackson, how he plays. But the best guy is Tarheeb Still. That's our second-year guy out of Maryland. He's a stud. So it's going to be interesting to see how these coordinators match up with each other, because Chip Kelly's no slouch, right? He knows how to match these guys up. Yeah, I kind of, you know, you'd expect me to say that they would go right to the run game. I know that Najee Harris will probably be more involved in this game because they're ramping him up slowly. So there'll probably be a lot more plays designed for him. I'm sure they're going to want to try to get the run going to kind of keep, you know, Graham somewhat honest, you know, not have you guys start just, you know, teeing off. So we'll see. I
do have a question for you. So who with Perryman with the high ankle sprain, and we all both know he will bust up the run. He's that old school linebacker, hard-headed.
He was like Spillane kind of.
Right now, I feel like he's almost like the Devin White. And yes, I would say Spillane, but, you know, Perryman has never been like, you know, that linebacker who can cover.
No.
But he's
That's
a guy.
why he's like Spillane.
Well, Spillane was better than Perryman at coverage. I will say that. But I will say with Perryman is like, you know, he's a guy who will get behind the line of scrimmage and just blow stuff up. So who's that linebacker that's going to fill his spot, and what do you think of him?
So if they go 2 down linebackers, which they'll probably have to throw them in, but at the same time, it's like, what are you guys going to run out there? You guys going to be 3 wide, 4 wide? How's it going to be? You know, 11 personnel. So if they do, it's probably going to be Troy Dye, who by PFF standards didn't have the best grade, but at the same time, this is where the fan base is kind of split. I thought he played really well. Other fans didn't think he played well. So I like Troy Dye. That would probably be the guy in line next to him, but I can see them playing our UDFA Marlowe Wax. There you go. Aesop had it right there. Wax. Yes. And, they made some moves today with the practice squad, releasing some guys. So I'm wondering if they're trying to bring up some players. We'll see what they do. But, yeah, I'm not down on this linebacker. They're obviously not at the standard of the Broncos or the Chiefs, but Deion Henley's an up and comer. Like, that guy should have been all pro last season. He's got as long as he stays healthy, he's got a better season going into this season. But yeah, it'd probably be Troy Dye with Henley. Long answer, but
That's okay. I mean, that all plays a part of what our game is going to be, and how are you going to scheme, and who are you going to go after? That is for sure. What like the Patriots, man, they went after Kylan Blue so many different times, but he actually played well, which I was kind of shocked. I mean,
I'll be honest with you, Jack. I'm still low key worried about Trey Pipkins against Max, because I don't know if Chris Jones had a bad game or is just I don't know what it was, but it seemed like Chris Jones wasn't.
Oh, he had a bad game.
Yeah.
He had a bad game. Sure, he had a bad game. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not trusting that going against your guys' home opener, Monday Night Football, going against Max Crosby, who's going to be, freaking, balls to the walls. So Pipkins is going to have to hold his own. I'm happy that Mekhi Becton's there, so maybe they can do some stuff, but then that leaves the inside. It's gonna be interesting to see. What does it say here? Yeah, I didn't catch the whole interview. I'll have to watch it.
So here's some bulletin board, for our game.
Okay.
It's good, again, for both coaches, right? For both
I had
coaches.
something too. Go ahead. Yeah.
So it's going to be Pete Carroll's 74th birthday.
Yep.
And again, I know all the Raider players are going to be pumped up. Hey, we got to get it for Pete. We got to get it for Pete. At the same time, everyone on the Chargers team, with the history of Harbaugh and Pete, they're like nemesis. They like each other, but they are nemesis, playing against each other. So I can see that, being bulletin board material for the Chargers to go, let's upset Pete's birthday.
Yes and no. I think, Jim talked about Pete today, and he pretty much said they know each other very well.
Mm-hmm.
There is, they're like, they talk, right? I think Pete came to one of the Harbaugh clinics they had, a coaching clinic, whenever that was. But he said, at the same time, I'm not on Pete's Christmas card list. So there's that.
I'm sure neither one of them are. They would send just the letter L.
Yeah,
to each other.
Something kind of different. Jim talked about Al Davis again this week. I don't know why it was brought up, but he talked about Al when he was coaching, and Al said, hey, we're going to pay you $50,000 a year. But at the same time, you should be paying us $50,000 a year for the knowledge that you're going to get. You're going to get, you're going to get the best schooling that the NFL can offer. Essentially, what he told Jim, and I thought that was kind of interesting, because it seemed like Jim has a lot of respect for Al Davis.
Well, you got to remember, Jim played for Al Davis when he was a quarterback.
Yeah, so I thought that was neat, and I was like, damn, $50,000 a year, that's nothing today. But and that's when Jim left. He eventually had to ask it, hey man, I'm leaving. I'm gonna go coach at UCSD. But I thought that was great. This game is going to be interesting, Jack.
Yeah, it's I've been going back and forth because again, I feel like our squads again.
I don't have a score prediction yet at all.
I've changed my score prediction like 4 or 5 times.
And what's making me nervous? What's making me nervous is, as of like yesterday or 2 days ago, it was like 90% money was on the Chargers or something, and I'm like, oh great. So Vegas is not the Raiders, but Vegas is like setting this up, kind of thing.
Okay, so I'll throw this in there. So since it's a home opener, it's Monday night. Chargers fans don't really want to spend the money to go to Las Vegas when you can stay in Los Angeles, and that's what us and people in California would say too.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend the money and go down south.
Unless you're a Niners fan, I guess that's the only fan base I feel like in California that could afford to do anything.
But I'm looking at it as a Raiders fan. I've never been to Allegiant, and I would rather spend the money and go, to SoFi because it's so much cheaper. And I did see a report, that for this game, it's going to be 86% Raider fans, 14% Chargers fans. So, I mean, we both feel this. Like when the Raiders come, to SoFi, there's a lot of Raider fans there because you know what? It's cheaper. But, Las Vegas is such a destination place. There's literally about 50-50 Raider fans and whoever else comes across the country because
this is the Pete Carroll effect. This is the Pete Carroll
Vegas.
effect, in my opinion. Your fans are excited right now.
Oh my God, we are. It's like so between Pete Carroll's birthday and this, it's like the spread again. I saw like it said before they changed it to 3.5. When it was at 3. The Chargers had a 59% chance of winning this game. And that's before the point spread, changed. So, I mean, that's why I keep going back and forth, because I see where we're kind of similar, where I have an advantage. I see where you guys have an advantage. And that's why it keeps making me change my scores. And I look at the over-under, which the last time I saw it, which was earlier today, it went from 44.5 points to 46.5 points.
Oh, it went up.
It went up.
Wow.
I think it's just because of the passing games.
Yeah.
Between the two teams.
And then get back to the passing game real quick. Both our rookies, the wide receiver I talked about, they were both active, but I believe Trey Harris only had one catch. Strong catch, albeit, between defenders. And then I think Justin might have tried to target KLS like 1 or 2 times and it didn't work out. So I'm wondering if these guys are going to become a factor in this game, kind of throw a wrinkle at the Raiders a little bit. I could see KLS being that guy just due to his speed. But like I said, man,
you're right.
I don't know.
You hit the money or the nail on the head on both. Because it's Harris had 1 catch for 11 yards and KLS didn't have anything, that game. So, I mean, it could be interesting because I can't say the Raiders corners, even Porter. I think Porter, again, he lost his starting job to Blue and he was a third round draft pick. And I think he only had like 26 snaps.
But so like when the Chiefs were trying to mount a comeback in the game, like I felt like the Chiefs had a really decent second and third quarter. What they did is they went back to their 2024 selves and just went back to the quick game, the quick dink and dunk, death by 1,000 paper cuts. And I said that I kind of was like alluding to this last week. I was like, with this type of defense that Jesse Minter runs, it's like a bend, don't break kind of mentality with that zone style. And you can be got. So I'm wondering, do the Raiders, does Chip Kelly, does Geno, do they try to do that on this defense? Or does Geno continue the trend this second week, trying to go deep on them, try to do this explosive stuff, So that's going to be interesting because I really like our safety group. And, but look.
I like I'm the same way. I like my safety group. I'm not so, hip on the corners. I guess it really is going to depend on I guess for both teams, what are you going to do? Are you going to just, rush 4, keep everybody back? Or are you going to blitz? I mean, I just think the offensive coordinators are going to pick up what the tendencies are and then try to do the opposite. Because again, both our teams did the opposite of what we thought we're going to do in week 1. So, I mean,
and that will lead to what score?
Yeah, Richie's trying to get us to do our scores real quick. So,
Yeah, we need to let Ricky talk about Broncos.
I happen to know that a football game is won and lost based on how many points you put on the field. And you guys are trying to talk yourself into winning or losing each of your teams depending on what happens. And that's fine and good. But what are the scores?
All right. So I started off.
You go first.
All right. I'll start off. I started off the Raiders losing this game. 23-20 is my first prediction. Because, I saw that, 59%, is what, Vegas odds have. So I'm like, yeah, and we know it's going to be a close one. And the point spread, 3 points. So I'm like, okay, there's your 3 points. And then I'd go back and, man, it's Pete's birthday. And it's Monday night.
Yeah.
It's in Las Vegas. And 86% of the fans are going to be Raider fans for the first time, probably since they've been in Allegiant. Then I switched it to 23-20 to the Raiders. And then I see the point spread go up. So I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, and both these offenses gelled. And they scored a lot of points against, defenses that are pretty decent. So I'm like, I got to move my point spread up. And, I can flip-flop. And I've been flip-flopping all since, the last game was over. But you know what? I am going to have to do this just because, again, happy birthday, Pete. Raider Nation's going to show up. I'm all about Raider Nation. I'm going to call it the exact same score I called last week. 27-24 Raiders.
So walk-off field goal or just...
Man, someone's going to kick a late field goal to win this game. We know that. It's like these guys play each other. It's again, interdivision, and your team plays well. And I will say this. The Chargers play very well, in Las Vegas since the Raiders have moved out there. I think you guys have a winning record if I'm correct. So,
and I'll give my score, but Richie's something that just popped in my head because I have ADHD, but which I don't know if I do. We were talking about turfs. I guess that turf in Brazil this year, the NFL flew down some machines, and it's synthetic with a mixture of ryegrass. It's a really weird mix or whatever. And last time I checked, nobody had any complaints about the field this year, so that was good. Now,
and I will leave you one last thing. Gino, if you look up his record playing in a dome.
Yes, indoors. Yeah.
Yeah, indoors versus outdoors. I don't even know if he may only have a loss or two out of his long career. So he plays better inside than outside. I'll leave it at that.
I'm going to predict a higher score for this game just due to the fact that this is a home game. It's indoors. It's not going to be in the rain. I think the Chargers don't want to drop this game, especially with them looking at the schedule. They're looking at the schedule and they're like, these are all must-win games. I think this is going to be – I got 31-24 Chargers. I think the Chargers get into 30s.
Touchdown.
And, yeah, there's more to give on this offense. I think there's actually much more to give. And I think we'll see that against the Raiders. I think it will be a game I think it's going to be a really good game up until the fourth quarter. I think the Chargers pull away in the fourth quarter. And that's no slight on the Raiders. That's just
we're not taking it that way.
And look, who knows?
You know what's going to be exciting? Whoever wins this game is going to be in sole possession of first place.
Well, we got the Broncos. We don't know what's going on.
Well, no, because here's the difference. You got an interdivisional game, and you got to win. And then if the Raiders beat the Chargers, then we got the interdivisional win against you. Yeah. So that would put us ahead because you beat KC. So then even if the Broncos win, then you would be in third. If you win, you're going to be in first. Denver will be in second, probably, because Denver will be in second, the Raiders will be in third. So
and then it will set up
between first and third place.
That's week 3 game will be okay. All right, so transition to Richie. That was a long. Sorry about that, Rich.
It's a great conversation, great topic to have because it's our team. So I'm glad we have.
I agree. I think it's important to kind of go through the minutia. I'm going to give my score again very quickly. I left it in the chat. I have the Chargers winning this one 24-21. I believe this is a divisional game, whether we like to admit it or not, regardless of how each of our teams are playing. The scores always come down. Like there's very few games where you end up with runaway or train wrecks. So for the most part, most divisional games amongst the AFC West tend to come down to a field goal. And so
very close.
Like close games.
Except for 2 years ago that Raiders fans don't want us Charger fans to forget about.
Yeah. So I mean there's rare air, abnormal kind of outliers, generally speaking, is a 3-point victory by one of the teams, or like a 4-point victory or a 5-point victory, some kind of basically less than a score, right, is what it comes down to. And so I have this as 24-21 Chargers. My kind of undergirding reason for it is I just think that the Raiders defense will struggle ultimately with the Chargers running backs. I think that the Chargers running backs are there's 2 of them that are of similar size. They are large human beings. And as the game goes on, I think it'll start to wear down a little bit on the Raiders defensive line from a run stopping perspective. Eventually, not at first, but as the game goes on and as time progresses, I think there's going to be adjustments and whatnot made, and the running game for the Chargers will actually be the difference maker. So that's my general thought process on it. And I'm happy to be wrong. I like learning and figuring stuff out if I'm wrong or not, although I do have a relatively good track record in my predictions for the most part, and we will go from there. So my Denver Broncos versus the Indianapolis Colts. So the Broncos are where Colts go to grow up, ultimately speaking, which is not an uncommon. It's a kind of a general statement that likes to be said in Broncos country, which is funny because Peyton Manning was not the first. There was others as well that came from the Colts, and they all kind of flourished here in Denver. Did not do well in Indy. Indianapolis is an interesting team. They have a great running back in Jonathan Taylor. You cannot ignore him and his production. He is certainly upper tier in the league as a running back. The Indianapolis Colts have an average to above average offensive line. I would kind of put them on par or close to what the Titans had as an offensive line, generally speaking, although they also have Nelson, who is their guard, who is a top 2 guard in the NFL, give or take, in terms of you see him in his play. That being said, the offensive line for the Colts is not all Nelsons. Only one of them on the line. And so despite the elevated elite level play of Nelson on the offensive line, I do think that there is tremendous opportunity for my Denver Broncos D-line to get pressure in the backfield, get Taylor caught in the backfield, as well as sack the living daylights out of Danny Dimes.
So I'm not starting him this week. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you got him on your fantasy team?
No, Jonathan Taylor. I have on one of my teams.
Oh, okay.
I think Taylor will have a tougher night because I don't believe that the Colts offensive line is as good as the Titans.
No.
And so I think that you're going to see more pressure, a harder running game to get going for the Colts. And I think their quarterback he's yet to face a defense like the Broncos defensive line, where the 4th and 5th pass rushers are starters on a lot of other rosters.
I mean, dude, that Miami team looked like a dumpster fire, man.
Oh, man, they look bad.
Dude.
Yeah.
And this game's in Mile High, right?
I have to check it. Maybe. I'll be honest. No, it's not. We're away. We're at Indy.
Lucas.
We're at Lucas Oil. We're at Indy, so we're not at home.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not at home. Our home opener was in with the Titans, so we were at Mile High last week for week 1. We are at Indy for week 2.
Okay.
So I had a bit of a gap there. I did actually know where we were. I just lots of other things going on in my mind that I want to get out real quick to kind of cover the gamut for the game.
Yeah, sorry about that. Rock and roll.
So I think our defensive line is going to do well. I think we're going to capitalize. I think we're going to have a better look this game, I think, from a defensive perspective in terms of getting to the quarterback, stopping the run in the backfield, and being a little bit more visually competent when it comes to the film and the all-22 and everything else. So there's that. I also think that my Denver Broncos are going to – there has been too much criticism from too many people that are too well respected in Broncos media with regards to the offensive line play that I have a hard time believing that Wattenberg has any more leash than just enough to hang himself with.
Richie, with your offensive line, I still saw a ranking, and they were rated number 2. Number 2 on the offensive line still.
Weed is legal in a lot of states, Jack.
Yeah, right.
Dude,
again,
by the way, I
what I'm
just
reading.
found out it's legal in my state, and I never knew that. And I'm like, what the? Anyways, go ahead.
So, I mean, drugs and booze are still a thing. And so all sorts of people can assess film incorrectly when they're absolutely blitzed out of their minds. And so I don't necessarily put a tremendous amount of stock in a lot of stats, especially sites and places that do not publish their matrix by which they grade. So if you don't publish the matrix that what you grade on, you can get the right, just take a long walk off of a short plank over a tall cliff.
Hey, good point, Richie. Because I'd love to know how the hell they come up with these grades.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So
I mean, I have no clue.
Here's my point: is that if you give me the matrix by which you're grading the guys, and you kind of make that generally public, I have a lot of respect for you, and I can actually start to trust. I may not agree with your rankings, but I can trust that you're doing it honestly. If you're hiding everything behind some veiled curtain because you're trying to claim to be some kind of guru, go away. Just go away. I don't want to hear anything from you. You've immediately lost my trust, because anyone who's really good at what they do, they don't need a veiled curtain to hide how they're grading and what they're grading it. They can put it right out in the open, and the overwhelming majority of people will simply just agree with what they're saying and doing because they are elite or incredibly good at what they do. There's a reason why podcasters out there like Joe Rogan are doing so well, is because they are so darn good at it. He doesn't hide anything behind a veiled curtain. He's like, yeah, I'm doing really well, and here's my 3-hour show where I just talk to people, right? There's nothing that's behind closed doors. And that's why a lot of people respect and enjoy the podcast, for example. Similarly speaking, these stats and nonsense that you're saying, the Denver Broncos are the number 2 offensive line. It's not from what I saw, my man. Our offense, the center that we have for the Broncos was somewhere between hot garbage and a flaming dumpster fire.
Well, also that kind of, shows that the NFL, there is definitely a shortage of really good offensive linemen. It seems like every team, unless you're the Eagles, right?
Yes.
You're struggling to find good offensive linemen, and that's why they go early in so many drafts. And we've had this conversation. You're not going to get a great left tackle if they're not within the top 10, of a first round, or even 5. It is what it is. These men are so big, so strong, but you got to have the talent, to go with that girth. And these giants, walking the planet, and then just to and to circle back, I will say this with your defense, and I really like your defense. I mean, it's a fun defense to watch, and they are awesome. I mean, you guys got 6 sacks. So even when the quarterback is not doing what he should be doing, and it's a horrible game, if you don't have a defense like that, you lose that game 100%.
If we can keep that up. If we can keep up a similar pace to that, that is frightening.
It is frightening.
Frightening.
Well, and that's why I asked you that question, because I really like your defense. And I think you have amazing players. And and there's not a single position. And then, after, the shows, which educates, everybody that's in the chat, and including me and DZ, about the depth of, you're talking second string, third string. And that's what, got me thinking. I'm like, man, I saw a lot of good Broncos defenses over the years. And that's why I had to ask that question. I'm like, how do you rate these guys
here
versus the history of the Broncos?
Let me put it to you this way. Jaquan McMillan was an undrafted free agent by my Denver Broncos in 2022. He is our starting nickel cornerback. He is a superior player at this stage in his career to our first-round cornerback that we drafted in this year's draft in Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron is our number 1 draft pick and a incredibly gifted cornerback. Even in his debut, he played very well. He did very well when he was on the field, and he is still the 4th best corner on the team.
Wow.
Let that sink in. An undrafted free agent is the 3rd best, not even close, corner on the team.
For those people who don't know or that are watching the show, Barron was, again, the first-round draft was number 10 overall. Was it 10 overall?
They all thought that they were taking a running back and took him.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you guys were going to draft Hampton. So is what I thought. But Barron was also, not only that, as a slot corner, he was rated number 1 in the country coming out of college.
Where did he come from again? I forgot where he came from. Do you remember?
Was it Texas?
Sounds familiar.
For starters, he's out of the University of Texas, and our draft pick was 20th overall.
Oh, 20th. That's 10th. Right, 20th. I'm sorry.
But still, the point remains is that this year's draft that we just had was a very deep draft in multiple positions. And teams recognize the importance of the interior defensive line in the draft. And so that's why Jahdae Barron actually fell to us. Our team and many others had Jahdae Barron in the top 10 pick category, which is maybe where you got the 10th pick from. He was often ranked on multiple draft boards as the 10th best player in the NFL draft overall. And the Broncos got him at number 20 simply because there were so many elite level interior defensive linemen that other teams just looked at what the Eagles are doing and said, we need to get on that bandwagon. And so it is what it is. But so anyways, I'm going to kind of quickly run down some extra things for the Indy game that I have to look out for. Danny Dimes, I think, is going to leave penniless.
Right. Danny Dimes, a dime minus 9 cents.
Yeah, I truly think that he's going to have a very rough outing. I think that he has shown over the course of his career that he struggles under pressure, does not process things well. And I think that when you go after a team like the Denver Broncos that have talent from top to bottom, both back end all the way to the front end of the defensive line, it does not end well for quarterbacks that do not process and plan and adjust well. Danny Dimes is not one of those guys. He is not one of those dudes that's going to be adjusting the team to get themselves in good spots. And I think that's going to be a big time problem for the Indianapolis Colts. On the flip side, I think that my Denver Broncos are going to have to show that they can run the ball very quickly. Otherwise, I think that they are going to be exposed pretty badly in the NFL this year because they're just going to be basically to be shown that they are kind of an emperor with no clothes, so to speak. Teams are going to start stacking the box or not stacking the box and then basically making it impossible to throw the ball and then basically say, I dare you to run it. Good luck. And right now the Broncos have struggled to do so. So let's wait and see what happens. Overall, I do have this game as a win for my Denver Broncos, although I do think that the Indianapolis Colts are a better team than most people are giving credit for. But nonetheless, I think that there are some picks to be had in this game on the defensive side of the ball.
Hey, don't take my thunder.
Which artificially inflate the score because I have at least one of them being returned as a pick six. in the game, which is basically going to take what would otherwise be a 23-17 game, and it's going to turn it into a 30 or 31-17 game, depending on how things fall.
Okay, so that's your score.
Yeah.
31-17 with a predicted pick six, because I think last week I predicted that you guys were going to have pick six this against the Titans. That didn't come to fruition.
That's what I thought too. I thought that was going to happen as well. I just thought that the secondary is very, very gifted, but what I didn't actually account for was that the Broncos defensive line was going to struggle greatly in the run, and we had to adjust how we played the ball and played things. So I think that hindered that. I don't think we're going to have the same issue in this game, and that's why I have the score where I have it.
Okay, well, while I think your criticism on Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, whatever, Danny Pennies, is warranted and justified, I think this Colts team is a lot better than what you guys had to face last season when you played them.
I agree.
They beat up on the Dolphins. The Dolphins look like a hot mess. But I think they're in a better place than when they faced you. But at the same time, your team is in a better place than it was last season. We'll see if Bo Nix can get on board this game. I've got this game. I got your defense with 2 interceptions. I'm not calling a pick six in this, but I do think you guys get 2 interceptions. I think you guys win somewhere around 24-27-13. I still think they can get some points here, but I think it's an easy. I don't want to say easy, but I'll say 27-13. That's my final score prediction.
Yeah, I think with both you guys, and I'm going to kind of follow suit. When you're talking double-digit points, and I think I'm going to go in between. Both you guys, and I agree. I think Denver's defense is just that. And DZ, Miami is Colts smoked them because Miami is absolutely a bottom feeder right now. So instead of the Dolphins, they should be called the catfish or something like that, because now
that coach should not be a freaking head coach in the NFL. And Flores was right about everything he said. And it is just that guy has got to go. Tua should not be the quarterback there. They're so screwed right now, especially with the cap money. Because you just got me in a thing real quick, but everybody's like predicting that the Chiefs are going to trade for Tyreek Hill because of what's going on. Well, he carries a 72 point something million dead cap if they were to trade him. So somebody's got to eat that for draft capital and all this stuff. It's like they are just in such a hot mess, but I can see them become sellers, within, like, say, by week 5 or 6 or something like that. But yeah, man, their head coach is an absolute idiot.
Well, yeah, you look at it, it's like, again, when, what they had on that team. And again, I will say, maybe he might go back, because it depends on Kelsey. Kelsey, carries a $17 million cap hit. So with Kelsey, getting married to Taylor Swift, and he's getting towards the end of his career, that dude is set more than any dude that's almost ever played the NFL anyways, because you're marrying Taylor Swift. And
they signed a prenup. They signed a prenup. I don't know if you remember, if you heard.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't pay that close attention to it.
She's worth like $1.5 billion or something.
Oh, she's like
1.9.
She's a small nation in herself. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Money wise. And then you look at it. Christian Wilkins has to leave when they got Tyreek Hill, and they got Waddle. Fastest parent. And then like the Raiders, they signed, the running back that was there, who also had like, a 4.3, something speed in Mostert. I mean, that team was so fast and it was so deep, and they also lost their left guard due to bad contracts. So they lost a lot of players, and now they're paying the price for it. So Indianapolis, smoked them. Again, I don't know what their cap is, but they lost so many good players. Again, Tyreek Hill is getting older. So, yeah, you know what? Maybe KC is desperate enough, and they can figure out a way to get him over here. And depending on, how much money that Miami will keep on the books just for this year, because we know Kansas City's window is starting to shrink.
Dude,
It's
if I was a
shrinking.
team, I'm just gonna say, Jack, if I was a team, I'm not touching Tyreek with a 10-foot pole, man. The
But
crap,
that would
the baggage, man, is just disgusting. And I don't understand. I guess the Chiefs are the ones that want to deal with that, but as my organization, they wouldn't touch that. That's just
Oh, no.
that's the kind of crap that you
No,
can't
he's got.
bring.
Doesn't he have domestic violence issues now too? So I know the Raiders, with the Blitnikoff rule, wouldn't touch him with a 100-foot pole. It doesn't matter if he's like $1 million and he's the best wide receiver who's ever played the game. It is just a golden rule. You don't do domestic violence, because Fred Blitnikoff's daughter died to domestic violence. So that's not even an option with this team. But I would say, Kansas City, that is a possibility. It really kind of depends on what's going to happen forward. But I will say this. That first game, I still don't think, the Colts are all that great. And, they deserve to dominate and get that win. But I'm kind of in between the two of you. Actually, I agree with Richie on the points that, they're going to score. I said 17 for the Colts. And, again, I'm like both you guys in the way of Denver defense is being, the cog in this win. The offense definitely needs to prove something, right now. I like both of you, I got it double-digit win. That's 2 weeks in a row that I'm saying Denver's got a double-digit win. I'm going to go 27-17.
How did you guess that? He just guessed your score, Jack. He put that in like. He put that in like.
Oh, you did, dude. That's nice. I think I called pretty much all the games the same score. Nice, Richie.
Wow. That's good. So, any interceptions from their defense or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I think there's going to definitely be turnovers. I mean,
okay,
they can have many as 3 turnovers, 5 sacks. I mean,
I have 3 interceptions, 1 for a pick six.
Jesus, that's high.
I call 3 turnovers.
Yeah, I have 3 interceptions. I have 3 interceptions, 1 for a pick six, but I also have a forced fumble on Danny Dimes for 4 total turnovers. Because I think Danny Dimes is going to get. I think he's going to get flustered. Like that's his MO. Like he just has that as a problem. And the Denver's defense is typically very good at getting pressure back on a quarterback, and so that's my general.
Their offense is like it still flows through Taylor, but then I know Jalen Warren's there. I think he was like the #1 rated tight end this last week. I'm not 100 on that.
No, they have help, and I'm not saying they don't. But the point is that if you can't throw the ball out to get to them, it's kind of irrelevant, right? And so I think that there's enough. Kind of zoned overloads that we can put for blitz packages in place that will absolutely destroy Danny Dimes' confidence. And
I'm even going to keep that score no matter what. I do have one last question for Richie before we get out of here, fellas. What is Ingram's injury status?
Oh yeah, what happened?
Strained calf. He'll be back. He should be okay. I am concerned that he might re-aggravate it just because the dude's kind of made of glass a little bit. But generally speaking, he kind of bounces back pretty quickly from injuries overall, but he gets hurt a lot. So this is not something that I was thinking was unexpected. Dre Greenlaw is not doing well.
Not at practice today?
No, he's a DNP, and I'm not expecting him to play in the game. I'd like to see a little bit more of Lavelle Bailey. I'd like to see a little bit more of Corene Reed. And frankly, if you want my honest opinion, I want us to put him on IR to just say, dude, go get healthy. Hey, Jordan Turner, Lavelle Bailey, let's go. And let's start seeing what these younger guys can do for us and kind of make our team better. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the show and my little tidbits. And you seeing how I can just read minds on the show in terms of score predictions.
That is kind of creepy.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for your time today on the Wild West podcast. We will go ahead and recap week 2 next week on the show and give you a preview of the last gauntlet game for the Chargers, which is going to be which is me as my Denver Broncos.
Yeah, go Eagles.
Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And until next time, where the West Side is the best side.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute, work hard for the